One person was excused.
Yeah, Mary was going to try and join us, but she said so it's unlikely. So we just have to see you for a few minutes. Keep it up. Jam?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, April 30th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Our first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us tonight? Please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Patty. Okay, we're now going to close this portion of the Select Board meeting and reopen as the local liquor control board. We have a number of licenses
Mr.
tonight.
Chairman,
Yep.
I'm going to recuse myself from F.
Okay, so Lanny's not going to vote on item F. Otherwise, we've got a lot here. And our first one is a new license. That's for Putnam's Vineyard. Doing business as Putnam's Vineyard, and that's a license of the third class. And I believe Kelsey from Putnam's is here. If you'd like to come up, just introduce yourself and tell us about this license application.
Hi, y'all.
Is the mic on?
Go on.
Yeah. Hello.
Yep, it works.
All right. Hello, y'all. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Kelsey Rush. On New Year's Eve of this past year, Putnam's Vineyard celebrated our 1-year anniversary. So we've made it past the virtual first year of being in business. During our first year, we had both the first and second class licenses, many of you may know, focused on wine and beer, and then we also sell the bottles that we have for tasting at the bar in our retail space. It's been really lovely. I'm super proud of how the business has grown and what we're doing and how we use our space to highlight others, support the local community, and of course, share our love of hosting with everyone. I wasn't sure if the business would be successful, and it's just such a privilege to see that it's been well received. So I'm back around to request the liquor portion of the license. I don't intend to change my hours. Still going to close at 10. Nothing good happens after 10. There'll be no plan for shots. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. The reason I'm really interested in this license is because there are things in Vermont that are associated with wine, for example, port, sherry, and fortified liquors that are not part of the first class license, and so I'm looking forward to adding those to the menu. I sell an absolutely obnoxious amount of mimosas and bellinis. Peach schnapps is a common ingredient in bellinis that I don't use right now. And another example of something I'm hoping to add, we do a great brunch business, so Mary's are certainly on my horizon. And I just got back from a lovely trip to Scotland and Ireland where I tasted a lot of great whiskeys, and I hope to do some little tasting and flights of very selected things. But my intention is never to have like a full bar back with all of the flavors and things that you want. I'm still going to really be focused on curated products and specialty items. So I do see this as an expansion of the business. I'm super excited about it, but I don't intend for this to change the way we think about alcohol or serving. I'm actually, again, super proud of how the business has done this past year. We don't have bar fights. We are not managing drunk customers. It is not that kind of place. We really cater to families. We've got toys in the back. It's the kind of place we come and focus on hosting a good conversation, not about getting drunk. So when I tell people I own a bar, I sort of jokingly say it may be the only bar in town where I just want you to have a great conversation. So that would continue to be the focus. Yeah.
Any questions? Lynn?
So this is strictly for wine, there's gonna be no distilled liquor or something?
No, so we will be definitely adding liquors as part of this, but when I think of, okay, I was just in Boston this weekend, when I think of a whole bar, I think, oh, you want a Malibu pineapple, or you want a vodka soda, and then there's like all of the vodkas and all of the rums and all of the, like, just a whole bar back of alcohol. That is definitely not my intention, so we're gonna be wading into it very strategically. What you're referring to is also true. Fortified wines, port, and sherry are part of the percentage of alcohol also qualifies as a liquor, not a wine. So I definitely want to be leaning into those things, but we will also have liquors and liqueurs as part of this, but very select and intentional, and then a small menu that goes with it, so people can't just walk in and order all of the things. So an example is gonna be, for sure, in addition to port and sherry, I wanna add peach schnapps and my bellinis, I wanna do a whiskey flight, I think we will definitely add Bloody Marys.
So my question, I guess, is will you be approaching us for a first class license?
Oh, so we have it. That's
You
the
have the
really
first-
awesome
okay.
part about this is y'all, thank you, awarding me my first class and second class license on roughly New Year's Eve of 2022. So New Year's Eve of 2023 made me my successful first year. So this is really just adding on the third class
That answers
license.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
thank
pay
you.
all my taxes, pay the extra. Really appreciate being a part of this.
Yeah,
town.
it's very,
Love you guys.
very nice.
Would you be willing to pay my extra?
Any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Oh, there's a hand up.
Okay,
So, Joyce, do you have a question?
Joyce, do you have a question? Your hand is up on Zoom. Not hearing anything from Joyce. So I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Lynn?
make a motion that we provide a new license for Putnam's Vineyard LLC, doing business as Putnam's Vineyard, 188 South Main Street, Waterbury Junction, Vermont, 05001 for a third class license.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 601. Thanks very much.
Thank you guys.
Okay, our next item is Renewal Cumberland Farms. That's a license of the second class, a tobacco license, and a tobacco substitute endorsement, which is vaping. Any questions on this one? For discussion?
So I had a question about the names being on the Spillman that were nowhere on the application. This one, there's 4 names that are on the Spillman report. And there are 3 names on the application, and none of those match, and so the response was, they're based on who's written on the additional information sheet. Do we,
I have no knowledge of this. Comes through the clerk's office. They give you the answer. I don't know if you don't feel comfortable telling this matter.
I think,
We- sorry, go ahead.
thank you, sir. I think there are sort of a few obvious questions about some of the process that maybe will be addressed if we get a presentation from the Department of Liquor Control at some point in the
Conversation later tonight.
So I won't hold anything up, but I'll just say there's some process things that I still have questions on, hopefully that can answer, so I should hold up this invitation for it.
Okay, good. Any other questions, discussion? Take a motion? Lynn?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we renew second class tobacco endorsement for Cumberland Farms Incorporated, doing business as Cumberland Farms. Number 8007-1167 Hartford Avenue, Wakefield Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Great, we have a second. With a second from Brandon, any discussion? Hey, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 0-1. Next item.
This question, you say 601. Isn't it just 60? There's nobody abstaining.
You would be correct.
There's an absence, so,
How do you-
I mean, if that's up to how the clerk wants to record
Yeah,
it.
she doesn't,
Okay, now we're gonna do consider renewal of Blood's Catering and Party Rentals, for a first and third class license. Any questions on this one? For discussion, or I'll take the motion. Kim?
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board renew the Let's Catering and Party Rentals Inc. 1147 Hartford Ave, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001 for first and third class license.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ida. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So 6-0, and then our next one is considering the renewal of Neshobe River Company LLC, doing business as Foley Brothers Brewery.
Which should we skip D?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just went right over it. Okay, we're considering the renewal of the Quechee General Store for a second-class license. Any questions? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Make a motion, we grant second-class license to Quechee General Store, 5573 Woodstock Road, Quechee, Vermont, 05059.
Do we have a second? Second that. Do a second from Brandon. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So Quechee General Store 6-0. Now we will consider the renewal of the Neshobe River Company LLC, doing business as Foley Brothers Brewery for a license of the first class and an outside consumption license. Any questions on this one?
Mr. Chair.
Right.
I move that we approve the renewal of the Neshobe River Company LLC DBA Foley Brothers Brewery at 5573 Woodstock Road in Quechee, Vermont, 05059 for a first class and outside consumption license.
Okay, any questions on this? Oh, I'm sorry, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm going to recuse myself from this next one.
You're okay.
I will be here to answer any questions.
You can just not vote too.
No, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, so we have the renewal, considering the renewal of Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 2571, doing business as VFW Post 2571 for a license in the first class and the third class. Any questions on this? Kim?
Just to clarify, Lenny, do you anticipate that the open fire inspection report will be closed within the 30 days?
We're working on it. We have a plan with the fire marshal in place that we are going to address the open issues. We have a plan worked out and need to satisfy review requirements of that plan.
Good. Any other questions? Take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board renew the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 2571 EDA VFW Post 2571 White River Junction, Vermont, 05001 for first and third class license.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Sue. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. So that's approved. All right, our next one. Considering that, just so new board members know, in the past liquor licenses always expire in April. Now, if you get one, say, at a certain time of year, I think you can just renew it a year later, but April is our time for liquor licenses. Just so you know. Okay, we're going to consider the renewal of Fontinalis LLC, doing business as Fontinalis. That's a license of the second class. Any questions on this one? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the second class license of Fontinalis LLC, doing business as Fontinalis, 27 North Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
A second from I. Any discussion?
We did clarify that it's second class. I
Maybe just-
didn't hear it in the motion.
Oh.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we'll consider the renewal of Wolf Tree Hospitality LLC, doing business as Wolf Tree. That's for a license of the first class, third class, and outside consumption. Any questions on this? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the renewal of Wolf Tree Hospitality LLC, doing business as Wolf Tree at 40 Courier Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001 for their first class, third class, and outside consumption license.
We have a second.
Second.
Second from Sue. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Next one is the renewal of the Quechee Club, doing business as Quechee Club for a first, third, and outside consumption license. Any questions on this one? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the first class, third class, and outside consumption licenses for Quechee Club Incorporated, DBA Quechee Club, 3268 Quechee Main Street in Quechee, Vermont, 05059.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
The second from Ina. Any discussion on this one?
Same thing, clarification, it's first, third, and outside consumption.
You said it at first.
You did say it,
At the
okay,
beginning
good.
part, yeah.
Great.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. Next one is Quechee Club doing business as Murphy Farm. That's for the first class, third class, and outside consumption. Any questions on that one? Danny?
As I have in the past, I raised concerns based on the serving of alcohol on one side of a, what's they designated road driveway and transportation across to the area of consumption. Not only for safety concerns, so when I attended my liquor seminar to obtain a license to serve, I was told that you cannot be carrying alcohol across a roadway. There was some questions brought up in the past about this particular roadway in terms of whether this is indeed an ownership of Quechee Lakes or if it is something to do with the town. So that's my objection, only objection to this, that safety for one thing, and as I said, what I was taught in my liquor class is you can't do this.
Okay, thank you, Lanny. Any other discussion or questions? Okay.
Did, Nanny, did you check with like the liquor control board or any other?
When I took my server's license, server certification license to be a server at the VFW, I specifically asked this question of the trainer, and the trainer told me that it can't be consuming, purchasing alcohol and transporting it across a roadway.
But any indication of whether or not, like you haven't determined whether or not this is private or public?
No, that has never been determined exactly, nor has it been determined, as I say, in terms of safety, it hasn't been taken into account in the past for safety concerns. If this were all on one side of the roadway, Lake Pineo side, I would have much less concern about it because it's all one side. Whether the road is shut down during the events they have there is the other question I would have. If it's shut down, there would be no concern for that. But if it's an active roadway, it'd be a concern of mine.
Okay. Motion or other questions, discussion?
Does this, I just want to check and see if the license were not renewed tonight and those questions were addressed. I mean, ideally, they could have been addressed before tonight, but like, I don't disagree with you. If it's a public roadway, it won't be an issue for me, but if it is, I'd like to get the answers to your questions.
Even if it's a private and it's active during the time that the consumption is taking place, there's a safety concern.
I remember this coming up last year and people from the Quechee Club came in and we approved this particular license.
And the state did also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just what I remember when we had this discussion last year. We had people from the Quechee Club, I think even someone like called in. So I'll take a motion
I have a.
or questions yet, Sue?
Were you saying that we don't know whether if we say no now, that's gonna interrupt their business flow? Is that your question? We don't know that?
Well, I'm looking, it just says ready for renewal, but this state applications are very, I mean, you've seen that there's not a lot of useful information on there. There's a lot of not useful information on
I
there.
can add some light to that. When I applied for the liquor permit for the VFW, I was told that they didn't expire because of the registration required with the state. The liquor license this year were not expiring until June. So there is still some time for the liquor license to come back to us if they do not approve it today.
Was that the VFW license?
No, that was statewide because the state has now enacted a plan where you have to apply electronically through the Vermont Department of Liquor Control. And because the implementation process has not been smooth, they've extended the application deadline until June.
I mean, I think the ideal scenario here, if I may, Mr. Chair, is that the answers to you would have asked the answers to your questions prior to tonight, so we wouldn't be in this position. And I think I would encourage you to reach out after this so we could think about it. Anyway, I'm not inclined to hold up the application, but I do think, especially if the state approved it last year, and the state can still not approve it this year, but anyway, that's where.
Meanwhile, then if you wanted to tell me some more details, I could research the issue of public road versus private road. for you.
I'll get with you. I'll get with you offline. I just, like I said, I know what I learned in my certification class that I had to take to become a server. And that's what I'm passing along to this board.
John, I think in the application, the names listed, they like came in on this exact permit last year. So they could probably very quickly,
We can find the minutes from that last week.
but I'll take a motion on this if that's.
Wait, I thought,
Sure, go ahead.
sorry. If we don't approve it tonight, are they SOL, so to speak? No,
I can't answer that definitively. I don't think so.
okay,
No, they're not.
all right. Talking about my village, and I don't like the sound of this, but I'm hearing it for the first time, so. If we could get that information and know for sure, I think I would feel better.
The best thing I could see is for the roadway to be shut down for traffic during times of consumption of alcohol on that property. That would alleviate any concern that I would have about a safety issue.
I don't think we've gotten any safety concerns from the state, and this was explained to us last year, but if people don't want to make a motion, we don't have to make a motion, we can move on to the next item. If someone wants to make a motion, we can vote on it tonight.
I would like to move to table this item until next meeting to get the information to satisfy.
Our next meeting is May 14th, if the license to them expired at the end of April. I don't know how much they're using this particular license right now, given, I think it's kind of like the golf course and stuff, but you know, that is a risk we always run, probably not. People want to table it, I think we can certainly
I'd
do
like to
that.
second that motion.
If we need a formal vote, but everyone okay on tabling this for a meeting? See, okay.
And I would just also encourage board members that if you do have concerns about an application that would result in needing to get more information, to try to get that information prior to the meeting, so we don't have to do that.
Right, and particularly on a renewal where we did this last year. Okay,
Not all of us
so,
were here.
no, that's true,
So-
that's true, but
Right,
many of us were.
yeah.
Okay, we'll consider the renewal of the Skinny Pancake, doing business with the Skinny Pancake first.
Wait a minute,
third,
wait a minute.
Outside consumption.
Wait a minute, we're skipping over Quechee Club doing business as Quechee Base Lodge.
That's right.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
there's so many Quechee ones. All right, so we're gonna consider the renewal of Quechee Club doing business as Quechee Base Lodge. That's the license of the first, third, and outside consumption. Any questions on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion, we approve a first class, third class, and outside consumption permit for Quechee Club Incorporating doing business as Quechee Base Lodge, 3369 Quechee Main Street, Quechee, Vermont, 05059.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second for Brandon, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we will go to the Skinny Pancake for a license of the first, third, and outside consumption. Any questions on this one? If not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board renew the first class, third class, and outside consumption license of the Skinny Pancake, Quechee LLC, DBA, the Skinny Pancake, 7161 Woodstock Road, Quechee, Vermont, 05059.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Ida. All those in favor, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, so it's the Skinny Pancake. Next is consider the renewal of the Midway Oil Corporation doing business as Mobile Station. That's a second class tobacco and tobacco endorsement. Any questions on this one? If not, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, make a motion, we renew the second class tobacco endorsement for Midway Oil Corporation doing business as Mobile Station, 906 Hartford Avenue, Railroad Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Sid. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, so then we're going to consider the renewal of Quechee Pizza Chef for a license of the first class and an outside consumption license. Any questions? I'll take a motion. Lanny?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we renew first class outside consumption for Quechee Pizza Chef, 5893 Woodstock Road, Quechee, Vermont, 05059.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Sue. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is the renewal of the Hanover Consumer Cooperative Society Incorporated, doing business as co-op food stores. That's a license of the second class. Any questions on that one? Take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the second class license for Hanover Consumer Cooperative Society, Inc., doing business as co-op food stores, 209 Maple Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Laney. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we will finally consider the renewal of Stacy Hopkins, doing business as Scavenger Gallery. That is a license of the second class. Any questions on this one? I'll take the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the renewal of second class license for Stacy Hopkins, doing business as Scavenger Gallery, 41 South Main Street, White River Junction, Vermont, 05001.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Sue. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That'll do it on the liquor licenses. So we're gonna close this portion as the local liquor control board and reopen as the Hartford Selectboard. We don't have any local cannabis business tonight. So our next item is order of agenda. If you have any changes. Okay, so we'll go to public comment. We'll start with people in the room and then go to those who are joining us by Zoom. If you want to publicly comment, please come up to the microphone, identify yourself and your connection to Hartford. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We ask that you address the select board as a whole, not as an individual, and that you refrain from making any personal attacks. If there's an item you want to comment on that we bring up later on the select board agenda, we'd ask that you wait until that time to comment. So otherwise, I'll open it up for anyone who wants to make a public comment. Not seeing anyone in the room. Is anyone on Zoom?
One hand up.
Okay, let's go to Zoom.
Marcy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. How you doing? I want to make a couple of comments. First of all, there have been lots of surveyors all over my village measuring and marking and getting ready for water infrastructure upgrades, and I find that very exciting. And I wanted to say thank you to whoever has had a hand in the process, because it encourages me to see that progress is being made. I wouldn't mind hearing any updates, if there are any, to report on funding sources and if there's progress along those lines. Not necessarily right now, but if you have that dancing on the tip of your tongue, I would be glad to hear it.
I can tell you, Marcy, that I've spoken with the folks at DPW. They have been talking to me about maybe periodic updates of the select board on infrastructure having to do with highway, water, and sewer. So stay tuned. I think there'll be a little bit of an overview of where things stand on all those different divisions of DPW in the coming weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Then my next is a information question. When we did the second voting, the special school district election on April 15th, there was a confusion having to do with the wording on balloting for the local option tax. Is that what it's called? That 1%? It didn't pass, but I'm concerned that we not repeat that. I know that was a kerfuffle for a while. Anyone have any news on that?
So the local option tax, you know, it has to, any charter changes need to be approved both on the town side and the school side.
Yep.
This year, what was a little unusual is that the school election was postponed for a little while.
Right.
And so we took up the town question on voting day, and then the charter questions came up again when the school budget was voted. In order for any charter changes to be made, it has to pass on both sides, right? So, I mean, that language was in there. Had it passed, had the local option tax only passed on the school side, it wouldn't take effect because you need both sides to approve. So I think it was just a little awkward this year because there was that time delay kind of between the two questions.
Right.
And so some aspects of the charter did pass, like the more technical corrections, they passed on both sides. There's been a bill introduced in the Vermont House of Representatives to codify those charter changes. And we imagine that might get done, but those are the changes like, you know, adding information night to part of the charter and making some other minor changes. But the local option tax is not a viable entity anymore.
Right. No, I understand that. My understanding when I spoke with Lisa O'Neill was that the wording on the town side and the wording on the school board side, school district side, there were slight variations that had her consulting the town's lawyer or whoever. What do we do if? I'm just hoping that we don't get that again.
Yeah, Marcy, agreed. In the first school ballot, the one that was postponed, there was a difference in formatting of the two sets of charter questions. However, by the time that the school district actually did have their vote a month later, they were exactly the same in format.
Oh, were they? Okay, that's good to hear.
Fixed it in that interim, yes.
Thank you for that. Finally, my question on the item number 4 on that school district ballot, the different sections 201 through 20 whatever. It's old news now because everything on there was voted forward. But my question on for the select board redefines quorum and majority on select board in the case of select board vacancies and or member absences and or abstentions. I would just like to express my desire that as many select board members participate at as many of the select board meetings as possible. I find it a little unsettling that we have to put something in print if less people are there. I would hope that we would not have to resort to that if at all possible.
Yep. Thank you, Marcy. Any other public comment from Zoom?
No other hands up.
Okay, so we'll close public comment and we'll move to select board comment. Lanny, do you want to start?
I have nothing that I wish to speak on.
Okay, Sue, anything?
No, thank you.
Anything?
No.
Brandon, anything?
No, thank you.
Kim?
Yes, I just want to kind of preface the board that I hope we'll have a conversation soon about what kinds of professional development training we might want to do as a board. In the last 2 years, the board sort of formally delegated me as a training coordinator to research some options for board training. And I kind of will want to come back and see if you're interested in doing that again in the future. There is funding, if I'm not mistaken, encumbered for select board training that, and there may also be grant funds available. So I guess this is just me asking you all to think about if there are certain areas of professional development that you're interested in, then I'd like us to discuss that.
Okay, that's good. And Sue?
Should we just email you with ideas?
Well, I think it's gonna have, unless, I don't think we can vote on anything without being on the agenda. And so I don't know if you want to officially consider me the training coordinator. I'm certainly happy to continue to do that work and just do some research and bring some options. I guess I could just say, is anyone on the board opposed to me doing some of that research and bringing it forth for a future meeting?
I do not oppose it. I am very concerned by the seemingly endless conversation about what is appropriate for members of this board to be saying in public and in which fora. And I really want us to address it because it should not be taking this much of our time. We just need to figure it out, have everyone agree, so my phone stops ringing 24/7. Okay, I would really appreciate that.
See if that's.
Meantime, anyone with training ideas, should we just send them to John? And then at a future meeting, we can sort of point who wants to take the lead on it. That seems like a good way to sort of to move ahead with it. And I have no comments or announcements. So we'll move to appointments. We're considering the reappointment of Joe Major to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equality, Equity, and Inclusion. It's Corey for a 2-year term beginning April 30th, 2024 and ending April 29th, 2026. Joe, if you'd like to say anything, you can.
No.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone have any questions for Joe since he's here? Sue and then Kim?
You having fun with it?
Yes,
Good, okay.
it's making differences in the community. And I point to, in particular, us having a public information officer, which was facilitated by that particular committee. And not only does it benefit one section of this town, but everyone in this town, more communication is better communication.
We also adopted the policy on policies, which I believe was an Corey initiative.
That is true.
Mr. Chair.
I just want to congratulate Joe for your award this week at the Social Justice Award from the Dartmouth Health ERG group.
Sure.
Anyway.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Any other discussion on questions? Before we have a motion? Okay, go ahead.
Make a motion, we reappoint Joe Major to the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion. H. Corey for a 2-year term beginning April 30th, 2024 and ending April 29th, 2026.
I'll second.
We have a second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item, town manager reports. John, we'll turn it over to you.
Don't go away mad, just go away.
I'll keep it very brief. First, I would like to follow up on this liquor board discussion. Martin Prevost from the State's Liquor Control Commission has offered to address the select board and liquor board about the role you all play in the regulatory process. Apparently, he's provided this service to the town in the past. He believes that 15 or 20 minutes would be more than adequate to kind of give a refresher as to what is the liquor board lane, what is the state's lane, to what extent they overlap, et cetera, and to ask questions as you might have. So if that seems to be agreeable, I'm looking for nodding heads and I'm seeing some, I will put it on a future agenda. Okay, very good. The other thing.
John, on that one, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt, but I think we also talked a little bit about whether that would also be a good time to learn some more about the Cannabis Control Board and our function and some information, because
I will talk with Kim and Lisa to try to
Okay.
coordinate that.
yeah, because I think there's some info that we weren't correct on some things, and that'd be great if we could. I mean, it might be worth combining the two.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it up.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna ask about that because we haven't done anything on it yet. And I'd like to know something before we have one show up here.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could combine the two of them.
Good, thank you. And just a reminder, you all, the last meeting did approve the policy on policies, and the document is now here for select board signatures tonight.
Okay.
As to some SIGACs, I'll just highlight a couple of things because we're trying to move these meetings along. First, I would like to point out that there was a site inspection of the Jericho Road area in response to a sinkhole that has developed. And the town fire marshal and the fire chief and DPW folks have been up there along with the state's geologist to assess the situation. And I think reports from the state geologist are forthcoming, if not already in hand, to be read and reviewed carefully. I would like to welcome Anthony Gove back to the Highway Division. He had left us for a few months, but the grass was greener back here at home. The fire department issues congratulations to firefighters Jeremy Rada, Cody Place, Aaron Dotter, Ryan Hulsart, and Gabrielle Poole for successful completion of the Swiftwater technician program. And in a related subject, we will learn that as part of the department's operational agreement with the Vermont Emergency Management folks, and the Vermont Urban Rescue and Search Team, the department received a 12-foot rescue boat and motor to add to its rescue equipment purchased by the state. Ships participated in boat and swiftwater rescue exercises recently. The fire marshal continues to be a very busy position here in town. Since January 1st, the department has issued 79 construction permits, completed 469 inspections, and the fire chief has expressed his appreciation for Tom Peltier for his long hours of commitment to meeting the needs of the community. He's been onboarding our new part-time deputy fire marshal and training the newest soon-to-be full-time deputy fire marshal. And the chief is hopeful that this will relieve some of the pressure from Tom's office. He's a very busy man. I will report that the police department reports that their patrol division officers and outreach division personnel, along with police social worker, responded to a suicidal veteran recently. Officers and the PSW were able to de-escalate the individual and get the person to voluntarily seek mental health treatment, resulting in a safe outcome for everyone involved. So another good news story from the police department. Thank you.
Questions for John on the manager's report? Yeah, thanks, John.
Sure.
Our next item, next two items, we're gonna be graced by Gail, who's coming in to first review the March 2024 financial report.
Hi, everyone. Long time no see. What? Oh, thanks. All right, so I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping since we have two new board members. Welcome, Ida. I didn't get a chance to see you before the meeting started. So every quarter I'll come and give you an update on the financials for the town. And on a monthly basis, the town manager and I meet with the department heads. So we're constantly looking at where we're at and how we're going. And each quarter there's a glide path that we want to have a target for the overall budget. And we're looking at the general fund budget first, and then we'll look at the enterprise funds. There's 5 of those. So each of you had time to look at the packet that I put together. It's nice and big. So I'm going to go through the cover pages. And then when I get to the end of the fund, I'll give you the opportunity if you have questions at that point. Great. All right. So the financials that we're looking at right now are from March 31st, 2024. And the glide path that we would like to be within is 75%. And that means overall, the overall budget, we want to make sure that we've consumed or expedited 75% or less of the budget to make sure that we have sufficient funding to get us through the last 3 months of the fiscal year, because our fiscal year ends on June 30th. So the appropriations, which are your expenditures, we do a comparison from last year to this year at the same time. Last year at this time, for 2023, we had used 65% of the appropriations. This year at this time, we've expended 70% of it. So we're perfectly fine. We're within the 75%. There's no concerns there. As far as the revenues go, just for some clarification, I think there was some confusion on when tax bills go out and how often they go out. We mail out 1 tax bill a year. It goes out in July. We're required by law to send it to everybody 30 days prior to the date that the first installment is due. So it's 1 piece of paper and it has 2 coupons on the bottom. They're due in August and they're due in February. Questions on expenditures or revenues before I move on to the next ones?
Sue?
What is the glide path? I've never seen that phrase before.
So you have 12 months in a year,
Yeah.
and you want to make sure that we're 9 months into the fiscal year. So you want to make sure that we've only expended 75% of that.
Oh, okay.
So when we're in September, that's the first quarter. That's a little bit scarier because we don't really have any revenue coming in. We like waiting for the taxes to come in. They're due in August, but not everybody pays in August
So all it means is we're going along fine.
We're going along
Okay,
fine.
all right.
So if we were like at 85% right now, I would come to you and say,
actually, John and I would have already had a conversation saying we need to implement some sort of spending restriction. But where we're at right now is sufficient.
Thank you.
Questions for Gail on this first slide?
There's always the question about delinquent taxes. And so I provided in the packet again, the last 3 years. So right now, excuse me, as of March 31st, we're at 1.4 million. Last year at this time, we were at 1.0. 2022, we were at 1.1. And in 2021, we were at 1.0. Our goal before we hit June 30th is that we're at around $1 million for delinquent taxes. And so far, we've been successful in doing so. It's not a magic number. It's just a number taken into consideration what we have for cash flow to get us through the first 3 months of the fiscal year.
We'll point out that for the first time in several years, we have begun the tax sale preparation process with letters to people who have significant delinquencies.
Questions on the delinquent tax? Yeah.
All right, so moving on to local option tax, the balance as of March 31st was $448,863. I also included in there the past couple of years worth of revenue, so you can see the difference. I'll just use February for an example. February of 2024, it was 85,000. In February of 2023, it was 77,000. And in February of 2022, it was also 77,000.
Is it the exact same amount?
Yeah, I went back, I pulled them, I was like, okay, yes.
Can I have a question now about that?
Yep, certainly, before I turn the page, yep.
I was inquiring with my question for the meeting about if we might want to consider the local option tax question on the November ballot, since the vote on the Lyman Park improvements failed. So there's kind of around $225,000 currently in there that isn't allocated.
Correct.
So I guess I don't know that we need to decide that right now, but I wanted to bring that up as something that I think would be good for us to consider before the November ballot.
I did speak with Scott Hausler about it, and I know that he was going to speak with the town manager to begin with, and then also speak with the town clerk, because we know when you have an election or have any sort of vote, you need to make sure that you start at the date that you're having the election and work backwards on the dates that you need to make sure that you hit all the requirements.
Okay, so that's already in motion.
It's not in motion. Scott is going to reach out to the town manager and have that conversation.
Excellent.
I certainly would support it. There is funding in there that's available. And I believe that it was stated earlier in the meeting that there was a lot of confusion around the language. And it may or may not have impacted.
The sales tax issue might have been conflated with the lot proposal.
Yes, because it was very close. It wasn't like it was a huge margin. So I certainly would encourage Parks and Recreation to go back and give it another whirl. Any other questions on the local option tax? Any questions on Fund 10 in general before we move on to the solid waste?
Any other questions on Fund 10?
All right, so the next one is solid waste, which is Fund 30. It's one of our enterprise funds. And same thing goes with this. We're looking for a glide path of 75% or less. Last year for appropriations at March 31st, we were at 51%, so we're below. And this year we're at 43%. So again, we're below the glide path. A lot of the appropriations for this particular fund, I know that many of you have had discussions. I'm not sure if you've had them since new board members have come on, but Fund 30 is a challenging fund, which there is currently a capital assessment that's being done there. So we've been very conservative with what we do for appropriations because we are limited with some of the revenues that we get there as well. And if there's any shortfall with any enterprise fund, the general fund has to cover it. So we want to make sure that we're being conservative, but I believe that you'll be getting an update probably very soon on the capital assessment, which is part of the ARPA projects. So revenue goes, last year at this time, we were at 643,000. And for this year, we're at 340,000. So we're significantly lower. And I want to point out that every year the general fund contributes a certain amount of money to the general fund, to Fund 30 to cover the curbside recycling. That transfer had not been done as of March 31st, which is the biggest difference that there. Other than that, they're going along or limping along, I should say, the best that they can.
Is that, Gail, is that transfer the same amount year to year? Or
It's based on the budget.
Okay.
So depending on what Public Works requests, which is usually based on your contract with the vendor, whatever they tell you it's going to be is what we put in Fund 30, and then you have to have a matching entry in Fund 10.
Okay.
So, and then the last thing that we look at for each enterprise fund is we look at the receivable balance, which tells you what's been billed and what's outstanding. And so in FY23, we had 14,000 that was outstanding. And this year we have $6,200 that's outstanding as of March 31st.
Questions for Gail on this one?
I suppose just a quick question about kind of how much the fund is spending relative to its appropriations. It's pretty low, 43% compared to we're 75% of the way through the year. And I think you had said, or I had heard that it's because we're looking to some capital improvements and we've not yet sort of decided what we're going to spend that on?
Sure.
Am
So
I
there's,
hearing correct?
well, sort of. There's a few different things that are going on with Fund 30. One is that there's a capital assessment or a feasibility study going on for the facility itself to determine the future of it and determine what needs to be done to bring it up to code. Or are there different options that we can use the facility for? Does the town want to keep it open? So that's all part of that bigger assessment. Another reason why the appropriations are so low is because we're struggling to find construction and demolition vendor to haul away material. So we have quite a bit of, we have probably, I think, $200,000 or $300,000 sitting in that waiting to be expended, which needs to be expended quickly. But I don't want to go into a lot of detail about that, but that's a big portion of it.
Thank you.
Other questions for Gail on Fund 30?
All right. So we're going to move on to Fund 50, and Fund 50 is the White River Water Fund. Again, 75% for your glide path. Last year at this time, we were at 88%, and this year we're at 40%. A big change with that is capital projects. We carry capital projects into regular operating throughout the year because we have reimbursements that come with most of them through the water revolving loan fund. I always say it wrong. So that's the big difference that is there. So no concerns, even though we're at 40% there. And then for the revenues, we're at 1.6 million, and last year we were at 1.6 million, and this year we're at 1.2 million. So again, not any concerns. We're right where we need to be. Receivable balance was a little bit higher last year. It was 304,000, and this year it's 266,000. And again, that is the amount that is the difference between what we've billed and what we've collected.
Great. Any questions for Gail on this particular fund?
Well,
Unless Brandon, you have...
Sure. It seems as though the outstanding bills are about 50% of the budget. Is that right? Yeah. So is this folks who are late on their water bills?
Correct.
That it's kind of concerning to me. I don't know. Just
it's also depending on the cycle. Each village comes out at a different time. So it certainly could be a contribution between when the bills come out and if people are unable to pay it. We do have a lot of programs that we promoted over the last 2 or 3 years that are through the state and local entities that are providing assistance to residents, whether it be for their utility billing, such as this, their water and sewer, or their property taxes. And it's been a very successful program that we certainly encourage everybody to apply for.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm just interested in how is that program managed? Like, who is responsible within the town for like doing outreach for those types of needs and connecting people with resources? Like,
well, we actually don't, that would be a liability to the town. So what happens is that the state reaches out to us and local entities reach out to us, and we provide it sitting at the finance office. There was also some at the town manager's office. When there was a huge push that was going on, it was also on our website. But liability wise, we can't collect people's personal information. We can tell them where to go and give them phone numbers, give them everything that they need, but we can't do it for them.
okay, so you provide information, but you're not targeting certain individuals who are late.
It's open to everybody.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you don't even have to be late. You may be that you know that you're not going to be able to pay your bill this month for whatever circumstances that there are. And if there's a program that's available that you fit into, then they will help you. And what they do is each entity will reach out to us and they'll send us a letter or an email saying, Gail Ostrow has been granted $500 towards her water bill. Please note that it'll be coming in either a check form or an ACH form. And then we'll put a note in the file. And if those individuals are set to be, receive a late notice or shut off notice, we can put a note in it that will pop up that everybody in town that has access, town employees, has access to that program would see Gail Ostrow's got $500 coming, don't shut off her water.
Yeah, I think I would just flag this, John, as a part of the conversation, future conversation for the information or the new position. The communications officer is something that could hopefully be folded into that role as important information that is accessible to people in Hartford. Because I know, for this area, we have a real wealth of resources for this type of assistance compared to a lot of parts of the state. So the problem is often just communicating about it.
Thank you. Other questions on Fund 50?
All right, we're going to move on to Fund 55. Fund 55 is the Quechee water. And again, we're looking at 75%. Last year at this time, we had utilized 56% of the appropriations. This year, we've used 52%. So again, no concerns, well within the glide path. And then for the revenues, we're at last year we were at 370,000, and this year we're at 423,000. So no concerns there. As far as accounts receivable balance, last year it was 93,000 and this year it was 84,000. Questions?
Questions for Gail on Fund 55?
We're almost there.
I missed your stoplight approach.
Yeah, but I think like to stop.
Stoplight approach.
You can have both.
Much
Of
less.
course, used to have a stop.
I only have so much time to do these. Come on, they went from being 25 pages to 100 pages. I'm not adding any more. I'm sorry. So Fund 60 is the White River Wastewater. And the appropriations for last year, we had utilized 70% at that time. And this year we've utilized 44%. Again, I noted in here, capital projects that we do receive reimbursement for play a role in that. Same thing for the revenues. You'll see in 2023, we had a revenue of 1.8 million at that time. And then right now we have 1.2 million. So you can see how the revenues last year coincide with the capital projects that we had going on. Accounts receivable balance, last year at this time, it was 484. This year it's 463.
Questions for Gail on this?
Okay, we're gonna go to the last one. So Quechee wastewater is Fund 65. Appropriations last year, we utilized 66%. This year, we've utilized 59%. So no concern there. Revenues last year, 1.0 million. And this year, we're at 1.0 million within 20,000 of each other. So no concern there. And then the accounts receivable balance, last year was 260,000, this year it's 271,000. So it's a little bit higher, but it's not enough of a variance to have a concern for it.
Questions for Gail on Fund 65?
I just want to thank you for answering such a question that I have. Appreciate it.
Sure.
No more questions on this, so I think we move to the next agenda item.
I have a question about the whole thing though, if I might.
Mhm.
So from your perspective, Gail, there's no overarching large expenditures for any department that we're looking at between now and the closeout of this budget we're currently under, correct?
For departments individually?
Correct.
Not that I'm aware of. We do have bond payments coming up and we have payments to the school, which I was gonna mention as at the very end of
Nothing
this.
would have
that
a significant impact on the glide path.
Right, not on the budget, there's reserves in there.
Right, no, I understand. I mean, we see
There's-
the glide path and, the glide path takes into effect what was projected into the budget for expenditures, but nothing that expenditures that are not unplanned for.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
If anything, it appears that we have more revenue than we were anticipating, so that was encouraging to see those other interests and those kind of.
We can move on to the ARPA fund status report.
Okay, so ARPA, this is, start right up front. This is for discussion only and for you as a board to have discussions in the future.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later, because with the ARPA funding, you need to have it obligated before 12/31/24. That means we're not waiting until December 1st to obligate the balance. We have many projects that have been completed. We do have some projects that are still in motion, which I listed in there and what percentages they're at. As we know, sometimes projects come in under budget. What does that mean? That means it gives you more money that you can make a decision to spend it on something else. And it very well could be that the project will come in over budget. And then we would need to come back to you and say, we need more money. So right at the moment, excuse me, there is 43,000 and some change of the original ARPA allocation that you received. So you definitely are obligated, you have to obligate that before 12/31/24. You also have an additional 62,000 in interest that we've gained on the ARPA allocation. You are not required to obligate that funding. You could take that funding and just leave it in the governmental fund. My recommendation is you get more bang for your buck. There are many projects out there that could use this funding. And I recommend that you take it into consideration. So between the two of those, you have, a little over $100,000 for you to start thinking about. And like I said, I recommend that you do it sooner rather than later. I mean, absolutely no later than September 30th, because a lot of these other projects will be coming to an end. You're going to know what it is. And then every month you should be having that discussion about what do you have available for funding? What are you going to do with it? Because I don't think any of us want to flush money down the toilet. It's free money. We need to make the best use of
No
it.
such thing as free money.
This is free money.
No, it's coming out of our wallets.
Well,
Other people.
it's not coming out of the community's wallet
Everybody's
at the
wallets.
moment, and it's accomplishing a lot of
Everybody's-
good.
No such thing as free money.
Okay, so Gail, I think the idea is we're gonna wanna talk about this and how to spend these funds before we really start even our budget cycle.
Correct, and so I have some recommendations. As we did at the very beginning when we were allocated these funds, the state encourages you as a board to reach out to your residents and ask them what they would like to do with the money. I know that one of the block party, or we had some function that was here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't remember what it was. The board set up a booth and you had postcards or index cards and allowed the residents to put some suggestions in there. I certainly would recommend that again, or, get it out there on social media or do your visits that you do with everybody and give them the opportunity to let you know what they think that they would like. Also talk to staff. There may be some projects that have been hanging out there that nobody wanted to come forward because, we all try to be equal and say, not monopolize the funding for somebody else. So, and then the last thing is, what are the board and towns the town-wide initiatives and what do you want to accomplish? That might be a good use of the funding as well.
And so how can we learn more about what the parameters are for this funding in terms of what it can and cannot be used for?
I can email the board again what it is.
You've already
I
sent it to
will
us,
let you
I'm
know.
sorry.
I'll let you know. It's over 300 pages. So
Okay,
basically you can use it for about anything. I think it might be easier if I send you what you can't use it for.
yeah,
I think that might be a little
but
bit
I'm
easier.
gathering it's pretty broad, what it can be used for.
It is for the most part. You can't use it to pay debt. You can't use it to establish reserve accounts. You know, there's
Okay,
certain things, retirement fund, you can't do that.
right, so more like physical things in the community.
You can also use it for payroll. You can use it for different, just not the retirement part of it. A lot of communities are talking that when they get down to the end, meaning in December, if they know that they have funding available and it's only going to be 10,000 or less, and your board doesn't meet during that time frame, leading up to that point, they're going to make a motion in advance that whatever the balance is at 12/31/24, they're going to obligate, to offset administrative fees, which would be that of, and that way you're not losing the funding. Otherwise, we have to send a check back.
Okay, so that's sort of like a good last resort option. If we don't get it together to have a specific plan, we can always just allocate it to administrative general fund.
Yes,
But ideally, we'll use it for something that people want. Yeah.
ideally.
So don't give us an excuse before we don't do what we're supposed to do.
At last resort.
So Gail, are you saying you've sent this out in the last 2 months?
I
didn't see it.
This was part of the board packet.
The original.
I think that was when we
Oh,
first got.
yeah,
it.
when we first got it a long
Yeah,
time ago.
so-
The ruling has
Oh,
changed a
okay,
couple
so we
times.
haven't- The three of us have probably not seen it.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, because I usually remember 300 pages.
Yeah, it's,
And I think on the second page of the agenda you gave us for this packet, I think there's a list of what we actually obligated it on. at
correct
that
so far.
time.
Okay.
So you can see like what we decided to spend it on, and we've still got 100,000 we need to spend before
Great.
the end of the year.
And it very well come back, Chief Cooney has a fire engine refurbishment. I think that's how it's said. And if it comes back that he only needs $300,000, then he's gonna have free up money there that we would be able to use elsewhere. But on the same token, he may come back and it ends up being 400,000, and then we would need to obligate some of that, so.
Even if you didn't hand out postcards and have more community outreach, there'd be endless opportunities to fund staff initiatives that they've got on the drawing board. So there's plenty of possibilities on how you might want to spend that money.
You just gotta remember to do it.
That's what I'm saying. You need- This is step one. You need to start having these discussions. Every month, I'll give the information to the town manager. The town manager can share that information with you as a board. And then you probably won't see me again until like July, and then I'm gonna be wanting probably some answers from you and encouraging you to make some decisions.
Okay.
A couple things. One, I think Mary was primary on collecting the information at the block party last year, and she might still have that data that she collected, if it's not in the town manager's office, that you can easily get your hands on. I bet she still has that. I think it would be useful for us to have access to that information before going out to collect more, but then and we shouldn't be asking staff about their initiatives, but we'd love to hear from the town manager, I think, what
Correct.
staff recommendations are. And then I just pointed into like we might allocate what to do with that remaining $100,000, but when it comes down to the wire, like Gail's saying, there might be like 36,000 additional dollars that weren't accounted for because they were originally thought. So it's that kind of money that I think we need to make a contingency for, to say any unobligated funds of ARPA be applied to whoever. I think that's a good plan.
Any more questions for Gail on ARPA? Thank you very much, Gail, for both your presentations. So, next item, I think we have
Chief Cooney here for a few of these. This is the Covered Bridge Half Marathon Road Closure Request.
Okay, first item, the street closure permit is a permit that resides as the responsibility of the fire department to oversee. In this case, the street closure permit is designed for special events that occur on the roadway, other than construction and emergency. So it comes to you for permission to close the street. In this case, the group organizing the Covered Bridges Half Marathon has presented a closure plan to eliminate some of the hazards or congestion they see with the one-way traffic currently occurring on the Quechee Gorge Bridge. So they've met the requirements of the application in that they're hiring the Windsor County Sheriffs to provide traffic control during that period. And they've notified all the residents that are on that street. And both fire, police, and I believe the rec department are going to be on site during the event as well. So we see no concerns with the request at this time. Happy to answer questions.
Questions for Scott?
I think just, I mean, I read the information, but you just like practically describe what part of the road will be closed for how long, at what, like it's just like two times a day for a short period of time.
It is 2 time periods, basically when the heaviest pedestrian and traffic flow regarding the event are taking place. Because the race starts in, Scott, you want to help me out? Because Scott is involved with Covered Bridges Half Marathon as well.
But I'm going to yield my response to Nancy if she could come up. She is the actual chair of the Covered Bridge Half Marathon.
Perfect.
She will get it right down to the second.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm Nancy of the Academy. I'm one of the co-race directors for Covered Bridges Half Marathon. And when we started seeing what was happening with the Gorge Bridge repair, which we actually didn't think was going to happen because it's been on the books for so long, and then now it's here, where we were like, oh my God, we usually park at the Antique Mall field and then bus our runners out to Saskatoon 6, where the race starts. And then they run their 13 miles and they finish down at the corner of Dewey Mills and Quechee Main Street. And then we used to bus them back up around to the Antique Mall, but what's trying to move 22 buses over that bridge, we just saw that as an impossibility with traffic coming on. We don't close Route 4. So with traffic coming on Route 4 and the bus is trying to get over there in time, the race starts at 8:15. So all the runners have to be out there by 8:15. So we were looking at options, and then we spoke with the Quechee Club and said, do you guys use your polo field still? And they said no. So we have the entire field now to park vehicles. So that's going to solve one thing. All the vehicles will now be coming down Route 4 onto Dewey Mills in the morning and going right into the field. So there'll be no congestion up top and then another round of congestion after. So we'll take their buses from like Stronghouse Spa down Quechee Main, up the Covered Bridge, and then onto Route 4, and then continue what they usually do to get out to Pomfret. And then the race happens, and then so the runners start parking about 5:30, and they have until 7 o'clock to be in that lot, and then the lot basically closes down. And then so our vision is we would have one-way heading towards Stronghouse Spa in the morning from like 5 until like 7:30. And the right lane would be runner vehicles going into the field, and then the left lane would be dedicated to the buses that are gonna kind of leapfrog ahead of them to line up and pick up the runners and then take off. And then it opens up from 7:30, and starting around 8:30, the spectators start dribbling in, and they've always parked in that field. So they always come down Dewey Mills Road and park in that field. So that wouldn't change. That's always been the same. And we close that off at 10 o'clock. Excuse me. So between 10 and 10:30, 11, depending upon how fast the runners are and how quickly they get their awards. The exiting traffic starts 11 to 12, 12:30-ish. And it's always been a mess because that road's always been two ways. And every year at our action meeting, the Windsor County sheriffs are always on my case saying, is there any way we can make it 2 lanes of traffic? And I'm like, no way, this will never happen. And now we have to get it to happen, sort of. So we talked to Stronghouse Spa, they won't be having clients until after 1 o'clock. I spoke to the 2 residents that live up there, and they thought it was a great idea because people were starting to try to drive down Fowler Lane and then get up into that field where they used to park, so they were not happy about that. They think it was a great idea to have everybody in one spot too also. So the exiting is gonna be 2-way up Dewey Mills to Route 4. And we're gonna line up the cars so that the right-hand side will be turning towards Woodstock and Route 4 West, and the left-hand lane will be going towards I-89 and 91 and points east. So when I spoke to the Windsor County sheriffs, they said, oh my God, that'll be great, we can get them out so much faster than holding traffic, getting people to turn down Dewey Mills. And so it just sounded, if it's okay, I mean, it sounds like it's okay with the residents, and fire sounds okay, police sound okay. And our last bit is I think I have to contact the AOT to ask them if we can override their stoplights, because the length of time that they're stopping people on either side is gonna be really insane. So I'm gonna have to see if they'll let me flash the lights, and then I'll just have 2 sheriffs on either side radioing, send your cars, send your car, so hopefully it'll alleviate some of the traffic. A lot of balls in the air. Good luck.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Any other questions? Hopefully I didn't mess up your mind with all the.
Any board questions or questions for the chief? And we have a Zoom hand up.
Sure.
Joyce, do you have a question?
Yes, we can hardly hear you.
Oh, no.
Okay, Jam, is there anything that you think we can do?
Should I talk louder? Can you hear?
Is it the microphone in the, where people are coming up from the public to speak, Gail? I mean, Joyce.
It's Kim's mic. We can hardly hear you, Kim. I can hear Mike fairly good. The people coming up to the mic, you can't hear them at all.
Okay, so if the mic at the lectern is working, I think you just have to be louder speaking into it. Kim, if you can speak.
Can you hear me tapping on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be mindful of that and speak more directly to the mics.
Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, you didn't have another question or anything?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So board, do you have any more questions, or do we want to make a motion on this, Lanny?
I move to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to authorize the town manager to close Dewey Mills Road as indicated in the application and issue a street closure permit to Covered Bridges Half Marathon for June 2nd, 2024.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a second from Sue. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got 2 more items with Scott that are probably fairly quick, and then after that, I think we'll take our 5-minute break, and then we can reconvene. So Scott, I'm going to turn over to you for the ambulance billing write-off.
Okay. I'm going to walk through the presentation that's in your packet for clarity for some of the board newer board members tonight. So this is annual practice. Currently, the fire department bills for patient transports and paramedic intercepts provided by our EMS services. Annually, the board sets rates and fees for the town. The fees for ambulance transporting services are included in that. All the billing for ambulance bills is completed at our office at the fire department. And we utilize software to maintain billing controls and invoicing for all ambulance services. The current rates for ambulance transport $900 for an ALS 1 service. And these are terms from Medicare billing practices, what constitutes ALS 1 and ALS 2. ALS 2 is $1,200, a BLS call is $650. Loaded miles are $16.25 per mile. That's with patient on board. And then paramedic intercepts are $375 plus procedures. The statewide average for billing for EMS services is about 80%. And on Hartford, we've been doing about 80% as well. Annually during budget development, we estimate what the revenue for the next fiscal year is going to be from ambulance fees and services. In 2023, we estimated $590,000 in revenue and collected $659,000 plus. To date, in the FY24 budget, we estimated about $600,000 in revenue from ambulance services. We've collected over $736,000 in EMS services so far. The write-off is driven by mandatory, a lot of it is from mandatory write-offs. Some of it is from no payer. So I'm going to walk you through some of the different categories of how we generate this debt in the first place. And some of it is from Medicare. So 80% from Medicare, co-insurance from the patient, and the remaining is a mandatory write-off. And there's an example in your sheets. So if the fire department billed $1,018.63 for treatment and transport of an individual in this community. And the base rate for Medicare is going to pay for that patient out of that $1,000 is about $415. And they allow in this case, $77.44 for mileage. So that requires us to write off $399 from that bill. And then the patient is responsible for a small portion of that. So we're allowed to bill the patient for, in this case, $125, and then we write off the $399. And that's where some of this debt slides into accounting wise. Medicaid, we're allowed to bill we get about 51% of what we bill from Medicaid. The remainder is a mandatory write-off. So in this example, a patient was billed $1,013.75. Medicaid paid us their base rate of $513.54. They paid mileage of $60.97. And then we had to write off $439.24.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is a basic question, but I don't understand what you mean by write-off. Like, can you just explain what that?
Yeah, so when we generate, is Gail still in the room or not?
You know.
She bailed on me? All right.
I mean, like,
yeah, so
layman's terms, like, what's going on there?
So the money, that amount of money becomes an uncollectible amount of money.
Okay.
So it moves into what we call the write-off fund.
Okay.
In the software.
So we're assuming that we're not going to receive it.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
It's all calculated. So there's ambulance billing software we use to calculate all this.
Yeah.
So once she knows, and I say she, my administrative assistant, is processing the bill and it's a Medicare payment comes in, it is purely a field she enters in. Medicaid paid this, they paid that. This amount we can't collect. This is the amount I can bill the patient. And those uncollectible charges become uncollectible debt. And that goes into this fund that we clear on an annual cycle.
Okay.
We probably if this is further in the presentation, but about 5 years ago, or maybe a little longer than that now, the auditors recommended that it's kind of phantom debt on the books for the most part. The auditors recommended we clear that debt and only hold so much of that debt on the books.
Because no one actually owes it. Because Medicaid doesn't pay it and the person doesn't owe it.
With regards to Medicare and Medicaid, that is true.
Yeah.
Nobody can collect that debt. It's purely phantom debt. There's other debt in here that could be collectible. It's just been uncollectible and we've traditionally written it off. And I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. The VA pays 100% of their payments billed now.
God bless our vets.
Private insurance. So this is what you're talking, you got Blue Cross, you got MVP, those kind of things that are out there. All commercial companies, by policy, we're required to have them pay in full. We don't accept assignment. So very similar to how Medicare and Medicaid work, insurance companies try to assign at a lower rate, guaranteeing, payments at a certain period of time with a reduced off the total cost of the charges. We don't do assignments, so we require them to pay in full. And we don't do their write down or their portion of the write off. We do set up payment arrangements for those who choose not to pay or can't pay, as little as $5 a month, and we do have some of those clients. So the write off that we're talking about tonight, currently the auditor recommends we keep no more than 2 years of debt on the books. So we write off the last year, the furthest year out. And we do that with the finance department. So for the period that we're speaking of now is the fiscal year from 7/1/2020 through 6/30/21. And that total write-off of that year was $159,567.86. And within your packet, you see the actual call schedule event summary sheet that's generated from the billing software. And I had my admin assistant kind of break that down to what the percentages are. The largest percentage in this write-off, it comes from the private pay area of our clients. Now, these are people who were sent the bill in the mail, sent it to their insurance company, and we received no payment. So this is uncollectible but collectible debt, if you're looking for a more clearer definition of it. And I'm happy to answer any questions here.
So is it accurate to say Medicare, Medicaid have policies precluding efforts to collect this uncollectible, but theoretically one could try to collect from the private?
That is correct.
Wait, I don't think so.
Sue and then Lynn.
How would you collect it? I mean, I'm on this program now and I really like it because I don't have to worry about what hasn't been negotiated. I get bills and say it's gone, but you're saying that's a choice that's made by DH or?
No, I'm asking the question and he has answered it. My question was, I assume that we're not trying to pursue collection against debt on Medicare and Medicaid patients, but that theoretically we could still try to pursue the private customers
Sorry, I didn't
for
hear
the
that.
uncollected
Right,
debt.
That was my question is, do we ever attempt to collect debt through a debt collection agency on private pay?
So we've had this discussion a couple times in the past that I've been part of. Once a week ago. So many years ago, we used to have a firm, and I'm talking 10, 15 years ago. We had a firm, and while I was not in this role, I talked to our admin who was, and they had very little return on that collection. In the discussions I've had with previous administrations, we did look at, and I presented a collection agency quotation. There are companies that will, buy this debt and pay back a percentage from you. But there was not an appetite, not knowing, it'd be very difficult for me to dive into the private amount due and really see what demographics are we looking for in the individuals and what are the circumstances, because those were the questions I got at the time. What were the circumstances for not being able to collect this debt? And I don't have a clear understanding of what those circumstances may be, and there was no appetite at the time to pursue.
So somebody could go. So somebody could go for 2 years and not pay off their ambulance debt, and we would just write it off. Is that basically?
Yes, that's the answer to that is yes.
But does this affect anybody's credit if they don't do such? Because it never gets reported to a credit agency or anything of that nature?
We do not report to a credit agency. And I'm not sure medical debt does anyway.
That's interesting. Not a lot of incentive for somebody to pay it if we don't go to collection agency.
And so the process of writing off, it's it's, the taxpayers aren't paying that, it's just sort of being cleared.
Yes, yeah, there's no revenue loss,
Yeah.
revenue gain here in
Yeah,
this scenario. It is purely an accounting method where we show, what was the total I gave you? We show 159,567.86 is uncollectible debt on the books in the
Right.
finance department, and we
Mhm.
show that similar amount in the ambulance billing software.
yeah,
This is a process through the legislative body to say you may wipe the debt out on the financial side and you might wipe it out in the billing software. And we remove it and it's gone, and we do this annually.
You say that though, but if you have a private pay individual
Mhm.
that you go for an ambulance call with,
Mhm.
and they use oxygen, they use medical supplies, we do pay and we do not get reimbursed for that. So we do lose money as a result of not having the bills paid to pay for the actual cost of services. So we do lose money. So it is a cost to the taxpayers in some degree because we cannot recoup that lost revenue.
I would agree that there is loss there, but then it comes down to every municipality guarantees, some level of emergency services through their taxes. And in this charter, we stand the fire department to provide those services. So I guess it's up to the legislative body how they choose to respond to where's the give and take there.
I understand. I just want to make sure that there is a clarification. We do end up losing money if we cannot recoup that bill payment.
Is, man,
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
my only comment is that that seems correct, like that we are spending that money, but I would think of it almost not as a loss, but as spending it wisely, spending it on folks who are in dire health need and cannot financially swing it. I think that is a legitimate use of the government.
Any other questions for Scott? If not, we have a motion. Okay, let's hear from Zoom.
Marie, go ahead.
Hi, Marie Elvin, White River. It was my understanding, I remember having this conversation that with all the Narcan visits that happen around the Haven and whatnot, that if you go and provide, bring these people back to life and they refuse to go to the hospital, that there's nothing you can do about it. And that is also a fact that we are paying for that we are losing money on that as well. Is that correct?
That is correct in that there are no charges for no transports. So if we provide services to an individual and they sign a medical release form, AMA or otherwise, they receive no bill.
Right.
Not within the borders of the town of Hartford anyways. If we provide services to another municipality for those services, we bill the municipality.
Right. And you don't bill the Haven for any calls that you do there?
No, medical responsibilities are to the individual.
If there's no other questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
Thank you.
Otherwise, be happy to take a motion.
I move to authorize the town manager to direct the finance director and the fire department to write off $159,567.86 is uncollectible ambulance debt.
I'll second.
Second, we have a second from Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we got one last item with you, Scott, and then I think we'll take our break. And this one should be quick. This is reviewing and adopting the local emergency management plan, which I think we do every year, basically, right?
You do. Every year after town meeting, we're obligated under law to update our LEMP, local emergency management plan, to file with Vermont Emergency Management. Other than providing a plan template for when we do have an emergency, it also gives us accessibility to some grant funding through emergency management as well. So this year we've reviewed the form and that updated the names and characters involved in the different functions within the town of Hartford. and provided those corrections within the document. And it is, other than a few name changes, it is the same document you probably, most of you saw last year. And just needs to be updated and adopted so that we may send it to the state.
Chairman, yep, I'd like to make a motion.
Well, any questions, particularly the new select board members we haven't seen before?
Pretty straightforward.
I know, but
Well,
okay.
I would just say that there is an online training course that I think is helpful, because if we do have an emergency, another emergency in town, the select board does serve as a role on the emergency management team. So I can see if I can dig up that training again and just share it with anyone who wants to.
It will, and about a year ago, you approved funding for me to update the town's emergency operations plan, which is a much larger document. That's kind of the cookbook of how we handle, how we identify risks within the community, what the management plans should those things occur. I've reviewed it with the town manager and department heads. We've got consultants working on it with us. So that presentation is coming to you. So expect to see another 300-page document coming your way.
Not to be confused with the upcoming hazard mitigation.
Yeah. So those plans are coming up for your review and approval as well.
It looks like we have a question from the public or a comment.
Yeah, I have a question. Is this emergency plan available?
Yeah, can you identify yourself?
It tells who you
are. Yes.
Once Mary Salza, Hartford Village. Because I have some huge concerns about all those propane tanks that are right down the road from us.
Sure, absolutely. When it's.
Which I just heard, they are full, correct?
They are full.
3,690 pounds per tank.
Most of them. Yeah, I can't speak specifically
This
to it.
emergency plan will do something, will address if those things ever blew or something huge. Because I think I counted 42, which that's a lot of liquid propane.
Ben?
Yep, I move the adoption of the 2024 local emergency management plan.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion? Hey, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Well, we'll take our breaks a little after 7:30 and we'll be back with the communication specialist position. So see you.
You want to just shoot me those LEMPs in the morning? I'll send it to
and we're gonna continue the meeting. Next item is we're gonna discuss the communication specialist position. This was formerly known as the public information officer. As you see, there's a motion on in our packet and I think a draft position description. So John, I don't know if
Yes,
you want to give
I'll
us a little
introduce
background.
Paula in a moment, but I just wanted to say that Kim asked me a good question off mic, which was basically, why is this before the select board? Do you not have the authority to move forward? The answer is I think I do, but I wanted to, in an abundance of collaboration with the select board, let you know what we're doing and what we plan to do with this new position. We hope to have a similar conversation in 2 weeks about our community nurse position. Just to let you know what we've done in terms of a job description and what our plan is for recruitment. So with that said, Paula Nolte, the HR director, is online, I believe, and she can speak to the question of how we got to where we are, right, Paula?
Hi, John, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Paula Nolte, and I am the HR director, and I am also John's executive assistant. So Sue, I know from the community, and Ida and Brandon, it's a pleasure to meet you as well.
You too.
John shared with me, I was on leave for a bit, and when I came back, one of the charges was that the select board had wanted to fund a communications or public information officer. We had talked about that a while back, so I knew the interest had been there. John understood what the funding was going to be and the amount, and was kind enough to do a lot of research on job descriptions and working with you all for what the position would be. When I came back in, we met and collaborated over it. And there were a couple of recommendations or suggestions that I wanted to share with the board to see what they thought about that. One of the first things we did was we discussed how the title should probably more appropriately be a communications and media specialist. Couple of reasons. One is a communications specialist. That's actually what we call our dispatchers. Secondly, there would be a lot of movement, with the media. And thirdly, at least in municipal government, a public information officer, as far as public safety goes, is a very specific position. So when we have an emergency in town and we have to open up an emergency operations center, it happens to be my particular role, is the PIO. And what that means is when we're all together and we are reviewing emergency situations, everyone has a role. The finance director has a role, the planning director has a role. And mine is as PIO, and there is training for it through Vermont Public Safety, which you go through. So we thought it was important. I thought it was important to differentiate those two roles. That's not to say that this new position might not eventually take on the PIO, but currently it's a bit specialized because of it being a municipality. The other thing that was discussed, this came about. I know the board wanted to fund the position and then sort of see where we could spend that money, how we could best spend it, what we could get for that money. Generally, I think normally we would see what we should get. We would, review the job descriptions first, see what other people do, see how much it costs, and then bring it to the board and say, this is how much it's going to cost. Can we afford this? So understanding the role I played in that because I was absent, it got turned around a little bit. Where that brought us to was the information that you see in the packet, where I think there is a very good job description in there that encompasses a lot. Secondly, the financial impact to the position, with the funding being $60,000, that would bring us to about 25 hours per week, 50 weeks per year. So a part-time, non-benefited position. The hourly rate was based on both information that GovHR, who did our compensation study, shared with me, as well as about eight or 10 other locations where I could find salary money. Those weren't necessarily for a communications position in the public sector. I think that sort of covers everything. When I compared all those numbers to just the Vermont numbers and some local numbers, as well as tried to look into the VLCT just to get some dollar figures. It was tough to compare the VLCT information because it's not really apples to apples as far as the job description goes. But what I'm getting to is that the 25 hours is at $44.69 would be the standard rate, I believe, for a part-time, non-staff person. I know there was interest, I believe, in this being a contract. And my opinion, my professional opinion is that this position is going to do a lot better as a staff position. The primary reason for that, in speaking with my peers who collaborate really well with each other, is that we would want that person to come in and be a part of the team and to be available to us and get to know sort of, the culture and the vibe of town hall and public safety and public works, and work closely together and learn how we already reach residents and how we do it better. So we felt that having someone who was sort of part of us was really valuable, and the best way to serve residents. Also having someone available and reachable was very important because things are shifting and there's a lot of different departments and there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of news that we want to share. And I think finally, I did a little further research to see what this would mean if there was the interest or your support for this to be a full-time position. And the way that worked out was the salary would be $39.50 an hour because it includes all benefits, and it could be we could start someone who clearly had experience, but could maybe make their way up the chain a little bit as they learned a little bit more about us. That position turned out with all the benefits, with all the taxes, with all the health insurance, that final figure was $105,000. So that's a lot from me, and how can I help?
Just to be clear, Paula, we're not suggesting tonight that the board authorize a full-time position. We've already talked about $60,000 being in the budget. You're talking about the future possibilities of a possible expansion, is that correct?
Yes, and even though, yes, we've come far with the job description and we have the funding and hope to go forward with this, yeah, it's more information and to make it worthwhile, to make it valuable. So yes, John.
There are questions for John or Paula about this. So it sounds like the motion here is basically to authorize you, John, to continue recruiting for this position.
Right. And we're prepared to do that.
I have to agree with Kim, is that I don't think that we have a role in this because it's already been allocated.
It's fine. If you choose not to make any motion, we will proceed in any event. This is me just trying to work with the board, collaborate.
Appreciate it. Just a quick note, I apologize, I should have said this ahead of time, but just language consistency, I love the new title and I appreciate the explanation of the logic of why that was changed. It does still say public information office in that nature and scope paragraph.
Okay.
And then it says this officer later on in that paragraph too.
Good.
And I also appreciate the context around wanting it to be a staff position and to kind of get integrated into the team. It does say that it's primarily remote with some in-office hours. Is that the norm for staff? I mean, I'm all for remote.
It's not,
work,
and that's
but-
something certainly Paula and I can tweak.
Okay, I mean,
I
but
noted that same provision and had a question about it.
yeah, I mean, I'm not one to advocate against work flexibility. I value that in my own life very much, but with the, some in-person time is good for that sort of being
Yes.
able to integrate and
Team
have
building.
that team approach. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, so I just wanted to address, I heard when you were talking before, when we were talking about the water billing and such, and if getting information to the public, if that would be something the communications position would do. And I just wanted to let you know, generally, if we get information from an agency that can directly help Town of Hartford residents, and it's brought forth, from a staff member who supports it and has sort of vetted it, then we do currently post that information and share that information. The only things that we do have to be careful about is sort of accepting, I guess you could say solicitation, but I don't mean that to be a negative word. If agencies come forward and they want us to publicize certain helpful things or events or something like that, we do make sure that it's for all residents and that it has staff support, because otherwise we can run afoul of the social service appropriations policy, which basically puts any help or assistance to social service agencies in the hands of the voters. So we definitely promote things that help residents, but I just wanted to give you a little information on that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think I was at an Energy Commission run event, and there was this really useful flyer that I assume, I didn't follow up, but I think it was probably created by our town staff and the Energy Commission. And it was like a flow diagram of like, if you need assistance with these types of utilities, these are resources that are available. So clearly really helpful materials have already been created, and and I'm sure you do good work getting them out there on the website, and more can be done to continuously kind of remind folks that there are things like that available.
Yep, absolutely. And really looking forward to this new position and making things more cohesive and making Hartford look even better than it is, and reaching a lot more of the public.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Do you have a sense yet of where you will target recruitment?
It's a question for Paula, probably. Paula, did you hear?
Well, luckily I just did a survey of all my peers to see any of them that have had successful hiring in the last 6 months. So some new ideas, some of the regular ideas, and as you know, we had a pretty good run of hiring department heads. So we'll start off that same way, what we can do on our own. But as far as any specifics, no, I haven't got that far yet, Kim.
I've already had one applicant tell me they're interested, so
Yeah, there you go.
we're ahead of the game.
One more quick question, just in the required skills and abilities, it says include exerting up to 40 pounds occasionally. Does that mean like being able to lift 40 pounds? That just seems like something that if I were interested, that would give me pause, and I wonder why that's in there.
It certainly was in many of the other job descriptions I found in this area. I can only imagine that it has to do with audio video equipment, but that's getting lighter all the time. So
Yeah, I would think
Paul and
we-
I can discuss that.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I understand the need for that section in terms of like physical abilities, but just to consider inclusiveness as much as possible with that type of language, yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Any other questions? We have a recommended motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm delighted to authorize the town manager to proceed with the recruitment and hiring of a communications and media specialist to become a regular town employee.
No, it's more a point of confusion. I thought this was a discussion.
Yes.
But what are we voting on?
I've
I'm
just
easily
put this-
distracted at this time of night.
Support the town manager doing
Just,
it.
okay, so it's just a vote of support.
Yeah, it's basically, you've heard from us as to what our plans are.
Right.
And that there's no strong objections.
Perhaps I could do a friendly amendment to myself and rephrase it to say, the select board supports the town manager to proceed with the recruitment and hiring of a communications and media specialist to become a regular town employee.
That I can say.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Sue will second that. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Paula.
Our next item this is the rehab of green sand media filter for WRJ wastewater facility. We've got Chris here. Oh, okay, Joyce, you had your hand up?
And Joyce.
Nope, I forgot to turn it down.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, great. Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good night. Good night, yeah. Good evening. I'm ready to go home. All right, so this filter rehabilitation's been on the books. We do 2 filters every 2 years to cycle through the 6 filters we have at the treatment plant. 3 of you know it's and reviewed it in the capital plan and reviewed it and approved it in the budgets that were presented to the voters. So simply we put it out to bid. We did it a little bit different this time. Usually we encumber and do it after July in the interest of getting the best price before market increases, because it's not just sand, it's a specialized media. We stuck it out now and phased the contract to get a better price. We did get quite a bit low bid from Carbon Filtration. They did the previous rehabilitation for us, did excellent work. So we're very satisfied with them. We found the bid from Kingsbury to actually be a bit excessive, but that's been our experience in the past. If we do get a second bidder, they're not as experienced as Carbon Filtration, who they specialize in this, and it usually is excessive. So simply put, it's roughly 7% more than we paid 2 years ago. So it's in line with what one would expect under normal inflation conditions. Even better considering what we've gone through and what the previous price increases were. So that being said, we're looking for your approval to so we can get this done as soon as possible because it's a water quality issue. And
questions for Chris? Good.
I just want to express my appreciation for you including GL codes in the memo. It really helped me like go back and be like, oh yeah, that was what that was for. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? Chris? If not, there is a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the select board approve the town manager to award Carbon Filtration Systems Incorporated a phased contract spanning fiscal year 2024 and 2025 for $142,000 to rehabilitate 2 green sand vertical pressure water filters with work on the second filter specifically to begin on or after July 1st, 2024, and to approve any reasonable change orders in accordance with the purchasing policy.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Ida. Any discussion? Okay.
I just question the words, any reasonable change orders, the wording.
it's following the purchasing policy.
That's what the purchasing policy states?
Any reasonable request would follow the purchasing policy. If we get in there and a valve breaks or something else to the side breaks and it needs to be handled right then and there under an emergency condition, I need to be able to have the town manager authorize a change order. I can't wait to come back in a month to you to fix it.
That doesn't have to be adversarial. I'm just asking.
No, I'm just explaining.
I'm just asking a question.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, now we're gonna hear a committee update from the Zoning Board of Adjustments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris Lowe.
Oh, Chris Lowe, yeah.
Want me to-
If you want to come up to the microphone, and identify yourself, and you can just give us a quick update.
I'll just point out that this is one of several upcoming updates from board commissions and committees per the recently adopted select board calendar cycle.
Thank you, John. And Chris?
Chris Lowe, I'm the vice chair on the zoning board of adjustment. I didn't come prepared with any comments or remarks. I'm standing in for Chair Steve.
Yep.
So I'm just here to answer questions from the board.
Any questions? Chris, Kim?
I mean, I get the whole objective to this process, to initiating it to be on this cycle, so this would just be once a year, to just kind of have in public, but also for the select board to just kind of hear from the board or the committee what working on, what if there are any particular goals or objectives you're working on, or what the, I mean, you guys receive applications that come before you. Is there anything that the ZBA does proactively beyond?
No, we simply respond to applications that come across the town desk, the zoning administrator, planning commission. They receive applications. If it's something that can't be approved by the zoning administrator, it needs conditional use approval, then it comes to us. We deliberate over their application, and if it meets the zoning regulations, then we'll approve.
Any efforts toward any zoning changes, or would that come?
We're not advocates. We're like a judiciary body, and so that's all our purview is to make decisions on applications. I could certainly stand here as a private citizen who knows a bit about the zoning regulations, what my opinions are, but they're not, can't speak for
them. Personally, I would love to hear your personal opinions as an expert in this area. I think, it doesn't, obviously not tonight, but, as someone who's new to the board and beginning to understand processes of the town, I would really value learning from people who have been doing, work in their area, just to understand a little bit more, what are the challenges you encountered, and from your professional, your personal point of view, are there issues that the select board should be thinking about and considering in terms of how zoning works in our town?
Perhaps, Lanny, are you still the liaison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I offer something at this point?
Absolutely.
So as a liaison, as a liaison for the committee, I have to back up what Rob's saying, is that there is a jurisdictional rules that the zoning board has to follow, regardless of what the plan for the town is that the select board has. If it meets the guidelines within the zoning requirements for the town, they have to approve it. So it's not as if they can drive or dissuade buildings or the growth within the town based on their own opinions. They have to follow the law of the zoning regulations. So they really, anything for decision that we would bring to the zoning board as a select board, they can't be driven by anything that we have. They have to follow the requirements of the zoning. So that's where they stand on that. So we really have no say as far as what they do and not do. They have to follow the law. And that's all there is to it for zoning and for planning. And sometimes when planning and zoning get off in the weeds a little bit, that's when they need to realize that these are the only requirements that they can use for dictating their charges. Correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll add that, I think it's a great help for us to have the liaison attend our meetings and give feedback from the select board's point of view on how we are conducting, because we're kind of an arm of the board, really, in making decisions on what's in the regulations. So, yeah, from the personal point of view, I think the ZBA is operating well. Joanne, the zoning administrator, is fantastic. She gets everything very well prepared before we have to look at it. I don't know how often the zoning regulations are updated. It seems like it's around 5 to 10 year increments or something that the town staff kind of goes through, and then you guys approve it. If I had to throw out a personal opinion, I haven't been too thrilled with the 5 foot waiver rule that came across during the last update. I think it was roughly 7 or 8 years ago. That's kind of tied our hands a little bit. I think it's a fairly lax rule that maybe could be revisited. But that's my personal opinion. Otherwise, I think the zoning regulations are kind of limited in scope. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of meat to really work with. So our purview is fairly narrow in those regulations. So that would be my only opinion on the 5 foot waiver.
Well, I guess I would love to hear what that is. I'm a little bit new to the regulation in this town.
People who want to build up against their property line, there's setbacks in all the different zones, and generally, like this, in the little village centers, that's the tightest, smallest properties. Their side setbacks like 10 feet. So we can understand that, if someone wants to build a shed or a garage, they don't have a whole lot of space, they might need to get into that setback a little bit. But the 5 foot setback rule is a waiver that allows people in all zoning districts to really encroach heavily on that setback. And it can get difficult. People are doing it more and more frequently, I think. And it gets difficult as a board to turn that down with the way the regulations are written. So we've done it, but it's not very often.
So in other words, folks are able to build up to 5 feet from the edge of their property in any district.
They need a conditional use permit. They need a waiver that we grant if they get into a setback at all. But this wording that's in the regulations now allows them to go right up to 5 feet from the property line if we grant them that waiver.
Okay, we have a couple people on Zoom.
Go ahead, Marie.
Hi, Marie Elvin, White River. I certainly have a lot to complain about the zoning department in general and the way they've handled things. But I'm not going to get into that. Everybody wants to get moving. But I did want to speak about that. They don't really seem to follow criteria that is set, and they bend rules. And as far as the parking situation in town, no vision at all. There's criteria for buildings that have been put up for parking allowances, and they just let it go without even thinking of further parking needs or growth of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie. We have another hand.
Joyce?
Joyce?
Joyce, did you put your hand back up again? She just keeps hitting that. Oh, she put it down.
Okay, so that's that. Any questions for more questions for Chris or anything, Chris, you'd like to let us know in summary?
Sorry, I didn't really come. I wouldn't.
No, that's okay.
You're the first one.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, I guess my question is just, procedurally, I think I'm trying to understand what Lanny's explaining to us. And also, it sounds like there is a process where the regulations get updated and the select board approves it every several years. I'll do my own learning to learn more about what that process is. But that's the type of thing that I feel like is useful.
It's the rules that we put forth to the zoning board that they have to guide their actions by.
Okay, so
And
we are, we have a role in updating those.
Correct.
Rules.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, for example, like in the last couple of years, we have updated the planning department has put forth a process where we updated zoning districts so that there were 2 districts I think we've done recently that had gone from only commercial to be allowed to have mixed residential and commercial use in them. So those are kind of things those are the only ones that I can think of that are actually zoning regulation related that came before us.
Okay.
That I can think of in recent history.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, so our next 2 items are sort of related. We're going to talk about hometown heroes. That's a discussion from our previous discussion about that. They asked to be on the agenda tonight for an update. And then after that is the policy on Lightpole banners. So if we adopt a banner policy tonight, hometown heroes or other groups of Lightpole banners would, fill out an application, come before us again. But we are here to hear an update, I think, from Dennis. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Select Board. Thanks for putting us back on your agenda. I'm Dennis Brown of Hartford. And we are here to present the Hometown Heroes Banner project and get your blessing on posting these in our town. I'm blessed to have some committee members here tonight. I thought I'd point out that Tammy Stamers here is on the committee and Terry Armstrong's on the committee. Joe Major has joined us. He's been there from the beginning. And Mary Hutchins back here is on the committee as well. And I'm also humbled to see so many veterans in the audience as well, including the Gold Star family. This project was initiated by the Select Board back in 2022 during the 24 budget cycle, the one that we're in now. And it was supported. Since then, the committee was formed and we've been working hard to bring this project to fruition. The committee has created an application and will soon be posting it on the listserv and Facebook. Once applications are received, the committee will select from the applications, and our goal is to start with 12 banners that we want to honor people this year with. If more requests are received, and we expect there will be, those will be held for next year or years. But our hopes are to post these banners on light poles in our downtown to start. This makes a lot of sense because the light poles are there and most of them already have the brackets and arms to put them on. We're hoping to have at least one banner that businesses that support this project will be listed. This will provide some funding for future banners. We hope that local businesses will help fund this as well, and also additional funds from the town from time to time, especially if this spreads to other villages in the future. The committee has talked extensively about how to fund this project. One thought was to charge the family of the ones that want to honor something. Our committee early on determined that the family of these honorees has already sacrificed enough. So we chose to use the committee's money that was granted by the Select Board for this. We are very excited about this project, and this will be the first that we know of its kind in the Upper Valley. We appreciate your support as we move this special project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I had a question. So you'll put up an application like on Facebook or the listserv or something, and so people would nominate people to be on the banners, or people would how do you see that working?
So they would submit an application with their honoree on it.
Okay.
We'd evaluate that.
Okay. And if you approved it, how long would it take from approval, like getting the physical banner to hang? Do you know?
if we ordered banners today, I
Yeah.
believe it has a 6-week time span that the banner company would have to generate them.
Okay, so 6-week time span, okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments, questions for Dennis or anyone else? Yep.
Just in reference to the select board supporting and funding the project. I watched the 2 of the budget meetings relating to that initial, what was it, $2,025 or 2,000, whatever the $2,000 amount is.
$2,250.
$2,250, yeah. Thank you. And at that point, there was not any specific presentation. It was put forth by a member. Could we put $2,000 in for Hometown Heroes? I don't think any board member at that time had any real, other than perhaps Mr. Collins, had like a recognition of what that meant. So I just wanted to kind of frame that and it was not a unanimous vote, but that the board did approve $2,000 for something that we called Hometown Heroes, but I don't know that there was any clear understanding at that time what those funds would be used for.
That's why I'm here to.
I know. No, I appreciate that. I just wanted.
Mr.
Joe?
Stepping just because I believe I was the one that initiated and it was specific that it were banners, and it was absolutely specific that they would be banners going up. And Mr. Collins and myself talked about this as far as what type of the types of banners and things of that nature, not discussed. That is absolutely true. How they would be put up, the logistics of it, but banners were absolutely discussed and how they would move forward.
And the subject matter of the banners.
And the subject matter of the banners. I think one of the things that was included later was the part that we would have first responders as well. Okay, just want to clarify one more time, because we talked about this in 2 years, because there was the 1 year that the $1,000 was funded, that was just mentioned Hometown Heroes. It was not banner specific. The following year, it was requested to add another $2,000 for fiscal 25, and that's when banners were discussed and the funding was not provided. That's my recollection.
That is not correct.
And that, I do not agree with that.
Okay, so we'll agree to
Can I have
that.
a point of information? Why is this so critical?
Well, because it basically says that the board has already approved this. And the board has not approved it.
It did.
It approved.
The board gave money to the committee, and it sounds like, they've got some money, like that'll help fund the initial round of banners. But we still need to have a banner policy and an application to come in from Hometown Heroes, and then if we approve that, then they go up. So I think that's what's still waiting to be determined. And I guess my question was, so we gave you $2,250, like how much does each banner cost? So is the money that the select board gave you enough to fund the initial round of banners? And then I think the idea is that you'll get local businesses to donate.
For future, because we do not want to have this situation happen again. So for future banners, we would ask local businesses and community members to donate.
Okay.
For something.
And do you know what the cost of each banner is right now? I just want to see how it relates to your budget.
Last year's prices, the banners were, it was $104.95, let's say $105.
Okay.
And then the brackets were approximately $70 if we.
Okay.
So. With the vertical, horizontal brackets.
So the $2,250 would cover like the initial 12 banners?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's just my question.
It would do that.
Okay. Other questions for Dennis or Joe? Select board comments on it? What I would imagine happening, and maybe not, is that we would adopt the Lightpole banner policy, maybe not tonight, but soon, at least by the next meeting. And so we have agreed upon parameters and application for
the group to make and for others who want to put up banners. And then once we've got that in place, Hometown Heroes would come back, we'd look at their application and we vote on. I would, I would certainly be in favor of these banners if we have a policy in place. So that's what I would hope we can iron out, so that we have a process. So not just for Hometown Heroes now, but for other groups in the future that want to have banners all following the same policy. Then
The problem that I see with your logic, Mr. Chair, is the fact that if we institute a Lightpole policy, there has been quite outspoken opposition of members on this board. And there's going to be outspoken remarks to craft a Lightpole policy to exclude banners of this nature. And it's putting now that you have a group that is presenting Hometown Heroes banners, and you have open opposition against said Hometown Heroes banners, you're going to have the people that are making the decisions craft a policy to exclude those Hometown Heroes banners.
I think the
Quite simply
proposal in
put.
the packet would not exclude Hometown Heroes. I just like to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field when it comes to putting up banners, because schools might want to, Jam, I think, wanted to, local organizations might want to. They might want to put up banners. We've already heard that they are interested in that. I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement how long stuff is up for. We have provisions that you can put them up yourself, or pay like a fee to the town to put them up. I want to vote in favor of this. So that means I want a policy that we can all agree on. And I would imagine there's a majority on the board who would vote yes to this particular policy if we have those parameters in place. So that's all I'm really, I support the idea of it. I'd just like to see a policy that applies to it.
It's okay. And Kim, I know that you did some research on some policies for other municipalities. I appreciate that. I agree with that. That needs to happen. Needs to happen anyway. It's something that this municipality does not have and should have. The one thing that I would caution about is the fact that the second part of what you said was when you design the policy, which I'm completely in favor for, because we have to have a level playing field for everyone to bring something to the table. If Hometown Heroes, if the majority does not say Hometown Heroes is qualified for whatever reason, then what? Then the money that was dedicated for this project is now in the way, which was initially the reason we're here. So I would just caution you for that the banner project was the reason that we're here. You develop a policy, which I am absolutely in favor of, because every single banner should have fun and have policy. So I would say, if nothing else, this has brought us to a point where we've discovered that we need to do something for this municipality so everybody is on a level playing field. But I will say that if we do not pass this as far as the Hometown Heroes part, then what? That money then goes into the ether that was originally said, yeah, you can do this. So I would just caution you as far as that is concerned.
Just for what it's worth, I'm on the same page as Mike. I think if we are able to establish a policy, I would absolutely vote in favor of Hometown Heroes being up for the duration that's allowed in the policy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the vote's there if we get a policy. Sue?
So I'm gonna put my foot right in it, because there has been so much said by a member of this group that shows that he has already made a decision about this issue before it's even been in front of us. And I'm reading the conflict of interest policy. And it would appear to me, and I have no idea if I'm right about this, I'm just asking, that at least that person should not be part of the discussions around this issue. Because he has already declared that he has a position. He's not going to listen to what happens when we come back with them. He's been very clear. He's now been in the newspaper with it. And how do we resolve that? I mean, is he conflicted out under the town of Hartford, Vermont conflict of interest policy? And I would say he is.
I just said I would vote for it if we have a banner policy. I mean, I've revealed my position. I don't think I have a conflict of interest. This doesn't benefit me personally, you know? So I don't think there's necessarily a conflict if someone says, you know, I'm not gonna vote for this. It's like if we were doing our budget, I said, I'm not voting for this budget ever, no matter what you tell me. Like, I just don't think it's a conflict of interest, you know, and I'm trying to get us to yes. And I see a majority of people on the board who are like, we will vote for this once we have our banner policy, right? Like, let's work together to come up with a policy that applies to everyone.
Yes.
Hometown Heroes comes back with their application and we approve it. Like, I think that is what we want, you know, if certain board members don't want to vote in favor of it, they don't have to. But look, I think everyone, you know, we're like, let's get the banner policy and then we'll move forward with this, you know?
Okay.
My initial concern was that, you know, we only have one meeting before Memorial Day, but it sounds like they still have to do the applications and get the banners and stuff. So ideally, I think they're looking probably around Veterans Day before they put this up. Maybe not. They can let us know. But look, I mean, I think there's a majority of the board that wants to go ahead with this. So I think the more we can cooperate all together to get it done, I think that's a win, you know, for everyone. So, I mean, that's just my.
I hope so. And I'm asking that this issue be brought before this group, whether we do it here or in executive session, because my life's been taken over by it and I'm tired of it.
Okay, yeah, we'll note that and we'll put that on for executive session.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Reading directly from the conflict interest policy. A conflict of interest occurs whenever a situation where the board member has publicly displayed a prejudgment of the merits of a particular quasi-judicial proceeding. It is quite clear from the writings of one member of this board that they have made a prejudgmental opinion on a proceeding before this board. It has been published in multiple media outlets that there has been a prejudgment.
We're not a quasi-judicial.
We are absolutely quasi.
Paneled as a quasi.
Yes.
We're impaneled as a quasi.
You don't, you're a lawyer and you don't know that? Come on.
Like the zoning board of adjustments.
Mike, this clearly is a violation of our conflict of interest policy to have a member of this board with a prejudgmental decisions participate in discussion about this.
I believe I have the floor. Thank you. I will say a couple things. The body that we're in now is not quasi-judicial. When we are impaneled as the local liquor control board or as the cannabis board or as the abatement board of abatement, then those are the situations in which we are a quasi-judicial body. And then I would agree with you that would be a conflict of interest. I will say that I have voiced my opinion sometimes that I would not support a banner policy in a very specific context. Like I said publicly, I wrote that I would not support it with these very particular conditions. And then I later wrote that, hey, I would like to support this under some other conditions. Just not sort of, what I wrote was 6 months seemed like a very long time. That was kind of what I was most interested in changing. So I too would like to vote for this. I feel like I also have a vested interest in a policy that applies to everyone equally. And I think later on in this meeting, you'll hear my thoughts on the policy as drafted. And I'm happy to share those.
Anyone else on the board? Then we'll hear from.
and in the south of Hartford. As a citizen, I'm sitting here and I'm listening. And I'm following the whole town project. Now we're talking about a ban policy. I do agree with Joe that we do need a policy. But it would be a huge mistake and not look well for this town or the select board to do a policy and then turn down. You will be asking for a nest that you do not want to be involved in. Thank you.
I do.
Sorry, yeah, I appreciate folks' passion on this issue, and I do just, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we don't need to get so worked up about a hypothetical when I think a lot of, you know, the board, it's a majority decision. Dissenting opinions are allowed. People are allowed to express their views on issues. And sometimes those views are going to diverge from what most of the board agrees on. And as a board, it's our responsibility to make a majority decision. And I think we have plenty of support on this board for a policy with a specific amount of time. And then, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about this specific banner project not getting approved if a policy is in place. Because from what I've heard from board members and from people in the community that, you know, our constituents, people want this project to happen and they want a reasonable time limit around it as incorporated into a policy. So.
Tammy Stammers, Hartford, Vermont. Reason you're hearing from us is because two of your members don't salute the American flag when we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Some of us have lost family members to this flag, myself included. And it's a disgrace that they won't honor some of these people who are heroes. I'm not just talking about veterans, I'm talking about law enforcement, ambulance personnel. There are people in this community that are heroes and they need to be honored. And just because those two over there are the ones that are gonna vote no, especially Brandon, who shoves it down our throat every damn day.
Okay, I think Brandon just indicated an openness to voting yes on
Yeah,
this.
I know.
And I'd ask you to address the board as a whole, not individual members. Not individual members, but
I am addressing
as a whole.
as a whole, and yes, I said his name because it shoves it down our throat every day. Hometown heroes needs to happen.
Thank you. All right, so I think what we've heard is a willingness to move forward on this in a positive way with a banner policy. Dennis, if you'd like to say, if anyone wants to say more, go right ahead.
I don't have much else, except that if we were to agree and this goes through, you mentioned about we wouldn't get it done before Veterans Day, that'd be November.
No, I've been Memorial Day. I was worried about the timing in case you already had banners up, like in hand.
We wouldn't be ready in time for Memorial Day.
Yeah.
We thought we would be, but we've run into some stumbling blocks, if you will.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing's delayed, so it's our hopes possibly by the 4th of July. But we gotta get organized and things done before that, so.
Yeah, I appreciate the update on the timing. I didn't know.
So are you gonna go into policy now? Or does anybody else have
I
comments?
think we have a hand up, so we'll want to finish. Anyone who wants to discuss the particular hometown heroes aspect, then we'll move on to a discussion of the banner policy, which I don't know if we'll adopt it tonight, but we'll be able to discuss it. And if there are open policy questions, like how long should things be up, we can kind of vote that. And if we have a majority either way, we'll be like, that's how we want the policy to look, and then we'll eventually, give it the ultimate approval. So I appreciate the timing, because I didn't know whether, there were banners ready to go and we need to get something in place before the end of the month. Suzanne?
Good evening, Suzanne Abetti, White River Junction. I was involved with putting up the 250th anniversary banners here in town in 2011. So I've a bit of experience with that. They were beautiful banners and they brought a lot of color to, especially in the winter. They were up for several years. These banners are so strong that they can stay up through the winter. And during a drab winter, it's kind of nice to have banners up. And I'd like to remind everyone that this is a veterans town. We have a VA. We have a lot of veterans. We're lucky to have a VA and veterans groups that honor those people who have served to allow us to have the freedoms we have. I don't come from a military family, but I certainly admire the courage of those who have gone to fight. And some wars are just unavoidable. But I think since the 250th banners came down, we've been needing banners. And I've spoken with Lori Hirschfeld numerous times about what kind of banners can we put up. And, everyone's too busy to really think about, we thought about this and that and the other thing, but no banners have gone up in many years. Now that we have an approved and budgeted for banner project in a veterans town to honor our fallen heroes, and they have given space for other banners, other things in between the banners and for our fallen fire and policemen and others who serve. I feel like this policy is an excuse to try and stymie the banner project. These can be left up year round. And if you want to create a policy, I would not do the 6 month. We only want it up 6 months and they have to take them down. It is hard to get those banners up. They take a lot of work. You got to get buckets out. The brackets break sometimes. The brackets fail before the banners do. But you don't want to be putting them up and down, up and down. We don't want our heroes to go up and then fall down again. I think they should stay up, and a banner policy. Let's do a banner policy that perhaps has a section for this wonderful project to be up until further notice. On designated area. I'm sure they have ideas where they want them to be, and then have other sections where other banners could go up alongside them. We don't have to take these banners down. They're not going to fall down. I think they should be up forever. This is a beautiful way to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. This is a veterans town, whether you like it or not. The VA is an important part of our culture in this town and an economic engine, and a way also of taking care of our vets. So I don't know. I think this policy, better be very careful about a policy. If you want to make the policy take down these banners, instead of having them up and then allow other banners to go up on other poles without taking the soldiers' banners down. Thank you. And other EMS, fire, police, all those people who are being honored. Thank you.
Suzanne?
Hi, Patty Holmes, White River Junction. I just double checked with Joe, and they're not for only the fallen. They're also for living heroes. So I just wanted to make that point so that everybody understood it. Thank you.
Thank you. So everyone comment on the hometown heroes. We had about someone online, and then we can discuss the flag policy. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Marcy Bartlett, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Kim. Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. I want to, my thoughts, I'm afraid, are a little bit all over the place because of the obvious controversy we're hearing this evening. I would like to first of all thank Dennis for the leadership and his patience over these months and his perseverance and willingness publicly to work with the select board over time to accommodate the different ambivalence as it's come across. I think as a show of good faith, it would behoove the select board to honor that he has really met you and gone the distance here. If you want to develop a policy, I'm sure policies are good, but don't forget the real kernel of why people are discussing this in the first place. Honor is something you do as a matter of choice. Honor to whom honor is due. And it doesn't take a committee. It doesn't take a policy to have what comes from your heart be front and center. Because I can guarantee you some of the people who would be honored would be humiliated that the town had to make a policy before anyone said thank you. I'm sorry, I just think that this is egregious. And I think those who have supported this have been more than long suffering listening to the browbeating in the media that has come across over this issue. It's humiliating. I think it's time to say, yes, let's get these made before the next holiday season and not in November. And Dennis said it takes however many weeks to order them. What's he going to do? Wait until after Memorial Day, get them probably by August in time for Veterans Day? It gets a little ridiculous. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. Any other comments on this agenda? Not, we'll move to the banner policy itself. Okay, so we have a proposed banner policy. I don't know that we're gonna work it all out and adopt it tonight. But we did have a chance to look at it, so you sort of see what the parameters are. And so I guess I'll open it up if people have things they'd like to see changed or what they think about it in general. You can do that. We don't necessarily have to do it all tonight. It seems like there's a lot to consider. But does anyone have any initial thoughts on it?
I was gonna say, maybe a first threshold discussion should be length of time that banners are displayed in town. I think that's an important divide.
Okay. So John did mention that the length of time in this policy, they would be up for a maximum of 30 days, but you can do 30 days twice. So you could have them up, during Memorial Day and then during Veterans Day. But I think the idea is, you get 2 runs of 30 days. Our flag policy, we allow different flags to be flown for up to 30 days. So this would actually be more generous than a similar policy that we have. So that's the first thing that's up there is the amount of time that we'd be able to fly them. And I think it is important. I mean, we have heard interest from groups besides Hometown Heroes about putting up banners, and we want to make sure that, everybody gets a chance to put the banners up. I can imagine the school doing something if they wanted to. I can imagine, Center for Cartoon Studies, like I said, jam. So I guess that's a question, is the amount of time.
From whom else have we heard?
We've heard from Jam. I think Kim, you told me we heard from someone else. So I think there are some other people in the works. They haven't applied or put in an application.
So one we know.
No, there's been discussion with this, just informal, but the 40 Days Parade, like they might want to put the Rio Blanco Social Club that does the 40 Days Parade at Halloween might want to put up a banner for the month of October. The Pride group might want to put up a banner for the month of July, that kind of thing. And Jam has mentioned it to me directly prior to this. And then Vital Communities also prior to hearing from this group was actually in process of designing an art banner for downtown. But then we're like, well, let's just wait till there's a process for this.
And has there been discussion about criteria and how we would determine who would be allowed to use the banners?
I think
That's policy statement.
So, yeah, it's in the policy part, right? All third-party requests to fly banners shall be reviewed and approved by the select board based upon a finding that such banners represent or promote local, not-for-profit, or cultural civic organizations, events or activities of particular interest or benefit to the greater Hartford community. And the banner should not be used for commercial advertising or political
promotions. Is that right there?
Political, so how do we define political?
Well, it says political
Promote
candidates
political candidates.
or parties.
Candidates, okay.
And finally, it says the select board shall have the authority to refuse the hanging of banners which do not benefit the community at large, and which do not meet specifications set forth below, just for completeness.
I am concerned that that makes us a little bit too powerful. I really am, because of some of the stuff that's been said already. I really am concerned about this. It's already so overly politicized. How do we pull it back from that? That's what I would like to know.
Let me respond. I think this has come up in other towns, and this came up during the flagpole policy as well. I think that language is in there mainly as a layer of protection if we were to be approached with anyone wanting any kind of Confederate memorabilia or Nazi memorabilia or other things that I think the board could consider to be inappropriate or not in the best interest of the town. And that's sort of a way to say that without singling out individual things. But yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's in there. And again, this was pulled from a combination of Hanover and Norwich's policies. And that was, I suspect, why that kind of language is in there. Someone approached us with a swastika banner that we could say no.
Who wrote this policy right here in front of us?
I drafted it based on Hanover and Norwich. Hi, Patty Holmes again, White River. I would just wanted clarification. So each group would have so many days, there would be different groups interspersed in one. Sorry.
Kim, no, that's okay, Kim.
My understanding, and one of the things I think we need to get to after the duration is we have a list from Green Mountain Power of all the town-owned light poles, like the decorative light poles and things, but we don't have an actual map. And I think that one of the pieces that is still missing from this is we do actually need a map of all the light poles, because I could see multiple.
I have one.
Great. Or just the Green Mountain, the big ones, or even the town ones as well.
Every light pole in the town has.
If you want to
Yeah,
provide
if you
that
could
to
send us
home,
that, that would be very
amazing.
helpful.
But the my point is, it's still up for discussion, but I could imagine there being enough light poles that were eligible with brackets that were mapped out, included in the policy, that says this group has these 12 light poles for this period of time. This group has these, they might only need 8.
Why are we putting period of time? I don't understand why you need a period of time. I'm sorry. Scott Holmes.
Because, I mean,
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just that we have a period of time for when we allow people to raise a special flag. I also think part of it is, if you take like the 12 prime flag poles and you just leave them up forever, other groups aren't able to have the same sort of access to where the banners are. And I think, I mean, at some point, I think it just makes sense that, there's a limit on how long things are up and give other people opportunities to put stuff up. I mean, I think the idea is like, we put them up for 30 days or 60 days because we're still thinking about the duration, but the idea is that they're not there forever and we allow, different things. You put up 12 banners for hometown heroes after, but you're going to have more nominees in the future. You're going to want to change like who's up there, and like I said, there are other organizations that might want to do it. So I think a duration is just, I think there's got to be like an outer limit, right? Like you can't just say these are up forever and they stay up for 10 years,
You can applaud and love and respect
Yeah.
veterans without loving and respecting or liking the aesthetic quality of banners, of a particular banner. I've seen these banners elsewhere and I don't find them visually appealing. They depress me as a person speaking for myself. I respect the message, but when I see them in Moriah or I see them in other towns, I look at them and I think, wow, these people made great sacrifices, but I wouldn't want to see that every day.
And to that I say, wow.
I'm sorry, that's
I
how I
say
feel
that.
firsthand.
Are you serious?
I am.
Wow.
It's an aesthetic matter, nothing to do with the
That's
content of it.
Well, no, I mean, we're putting up banners downtown, everyone has to see them, they have to, you know, I mean, I certainly understand some people don't like this. And that's the idea, is to try and put them up. You know, I think it's good, eventually they're gonna go up, right? I mean, we're gonna get to this policy and we're gonna work through it, right? But, you know, it doesn't mean they're up forever, right? And some people in town aren't gonna like them, right? And so everybody compromises, you know, we put them up for 60 days, right? And then other banners go up. People who don't like banners at all, they drive by them for 60 days, right? Like, everybody comes to the middle at some point on this, right? And that's what we're trying to do, is get the yes. And if people are constantly like, you know, getting upset with berating people who have other opinions about it, that's not gonna get us there, right? We wanna get this flag policy there. We wanna, you know, help make sure we get the Hometown Heroes banners up in a way that's just fair to everyone. Everyone's playing by the same rules. Like, we're literally trying to get to yes.
By not
Dennis?
changing the size of
I'm
the
sorry,
banners?
I'm sorry, if you wanna speak, you can go up and get in line and introduce yourself. But we're on the Hartford Lightpole banner policy now. I have a feeling that this is not gonna get resolved tonight, and I think after we hear from people, we should identify the main areas that are still contentious, so duration, you know, what the language is, the criteria for stuff, either to make sure we don't exercise a lot of authority to deny stuff, right? And basically the cost, you know, if the town helps you put them on, right? So I think we identify that, and then we move on to our next item after we. Dennis.
Chairman. Yes, we're gonna be civil one way or the other here. I hope. So the duration, the time, as you probably have read, we've requested Memorial Day to Veterans Day, pretty much all summer. And that covers Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and anything else you wanna put in between. So, I'm hoping this will marry up to anybody else who wants to have banners down there. I'm not thinking of concentrating these. I hope they aren't concentrated. I hope I think we talked about this last time we met, that we'd have welcome to Hartford in between, or flower pot, or whatever other message, you know, jam that's mentioned and whatnot. And my first early on wandering around downtown looking at light poles and trying to sort this out, I quickly counted 25 right on South Main without going past, say, CNS Pizza. There was like 25 poles there, and they go all the way down South Main. So there's plenty of poles for people to use. You can't. What I'm trying to say is, if these go up, doesn't mean something else can't go up. So six months or so between those two main holidays. And I often hear the comment sometimes about this is too much. This is too much. And when I think of the sacrifices that some folks have made for our country, our state, and our town, I don't know how it can be too much. I've heard a comment about how these may recruit people and inspire people to join the military. Well, I don't see is that such a bad thing. If you don't know, our military is all volunteer. And why would it be shameful if somebody was inspired by these to join the military? I guess I just don't get that. I hear a lot of, I support veterans, but there's really no buts here to if you support veterans or not, you either do or you don't. So I really, you know, when I hear people saying, you know, I read about how things are done in the military, I heard from somebody else how things are done in the military. I have a military vehicle. The guy I bought it from has a sign on the door. He had to be a Vietnam veteran. It basically says if you weren't there, you need to shut up about it. And so by reading and hearing and judging on when you weren't there, I think is a tall order. Another comment that's floated around has been celebrate diversity, not red, white, and blue. I gotta tell you, that comment kind of hit me right to the core because it seems like an oxymoron. On one hand, we're gonna have diversity, which I take it to mean everyone. And on the second half of that statement, but not red, white, blue. We're gonna exclude those folks. And I think I heard an inclusivity mentioned earlier for some other topic here. I don't know where that's going, because I just don't get that. So I really think the 6-month plan, whatever it is, between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, there's some towns leaving up your rent. We're not asking for that. So that's my take on the duration. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. I know you mentioned the duration, and maybe someone else, if there are other areas of the policy you want to identify, you might have a different thought about. Or Mary Kay, if you have thought. I mean, the idea is we want to highlight the areas where we still have some things to work out, like how long would they be up, right? There may be other aspects. And so if anyone can identify other issues they have with it, that would probably be helpful.
So I was trying to pertain this to duration.
Okay, good. Lanny?
Yeah, I think $30 a banner for installation is extremely high for these things. They're not talking about, once the brackets are up, they're not gonna take that long to put these banners up and down. I mean, you're charging a group $30 a banner to put banners up and down. You're talking a lot of money for this thing. If we want to use town resources to do that, that's ridiculous.
I think cost is another area. Ideally, the costs to put them up reflects the cost of the times of the town's time and effort to put it up. So if it only costs the town $10 to put up, one of these, then we shouldn't charge more than 10. It shouldn't be a tax, it's a fee. It should relate to the work the town does. I don't know if we have a solid number yet of what the
It's a question Lori has raised in her comments. Does the town have the equipment and staff and resources to do this? Is the $30 fee sufficient to cover staff and equipment costs to install and take down?
So I think one question that's outstanding is the cost. And also in the policy, we would have a provision where people can put them up themselves and not incur a cost.
But if that's to be done, some kind of liability waiver for folks.
Yeah,
that's easy. We would
most
likely put these up for sale.
Yeah, no, understood, but that's good, because duration and cost are open items, I think, for us to work on for the next iteration. Mary Kay?
Thank you, Mary Kay, White River Junction. So the first thing I was gonna mention was asking the same question was, does Parks and Rec or DPW actually have time to do this? Let's say that everybody thinks this is a great idea and now you've got 24 groups that each one use 12 poles to town for 2 months at a time. Does anybody actually have time, whether we're paying them or not, to be going around every 30 days, switching out this pole and that pole? Last I knew, Parks and Rec and DPW were already understaffed, so that's a concern. As mentioned, this is fairly labor intensive and it is expensive. The proposal of $30, you start a banner is only 100. So you want to increase the cost by 30% for any group that wants to put up banners? That's I don't think that's good. I too have concerns about these vague phrases about we can refuse to hang banners which do not benefit the community at large.
Okay.
There could be a big debate about that, and I don't like the vagueness of that.
So that's sort of like the criteria.
I certainly hope there's not gonna be a vote on anything. I hope there's not gonna be a vote on this tonight, because I emailed, well, you keep saying that maybe we're gonna vote on it.
Yeah, no, maybe we would have if everyone had come together.
I think he did abandon that.
Yeah, no, I've
I
abandoned that.
because I emailed earlier to find out if there was a version 2 for the public to consider, and I was told, no, we're not nowhere near that yet. So I certainly hope that in 90 minutes after everybody else in town has gone to bed, don't decide to have a vote on something that nobody has been able to see version 2.
Yeah, no.
And then lastly, I think the Hometown Heroes banners program should be grandfathered in, because that all started long before the big idea that we need a policy, which is probably a good idea in the long run. But I think the Hometown Hero banners thing should be grandfathered. Let's get some banners up and then make a policy to follow on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. So one thing, question about that too, is we may or may not have an existing sign. And so we may want to see what that details.
Sign ordinance is not.
Definitely have a sign ordinance, but I
I
think
wonder if Lori Hirschfeld is on the
she
line.
is, and I think she already responded. I mean, that's what I asked if planning had any approval process to go
We were
through.
told early on that the sign ordinance didn't have anything to do with this and it's completely separate.
Okay.
By Lori.
Yeah.
Check with the director of planning and development on that. Sure that no town or state that needed to put these on.
Sure, thank you. Tim?
Tammy, Hartford. I have heard that your impending policy states that the banners must be of a certain size, which coincidentally doesn't match the size of the banners that are typically made. That's convenient, I think, in a right block.
Well, it wasn't done intentionally.
Sure.
No, it wasn't. I think those are standard dimensions. If the other flags are a different, if the banners are a different dimension, you know, we're not gonna try and.
Well, it really does look like it. It looks like you're trying to block hometown heroes. To me.
Yeah, I'm just saying, literally, this is the Hanover Parks and Rec application. I just copied what they had. I think what we could do is easily change the language to say no greater than. So that is just, I mean, literally, they said 24 by 47, and I thought that might mean there was an inch for where the banner rod goes or something.
You can't buy a 12 by 47 inch banner.
They're fine. We will accommodate that then.
Perfect. Also, aren't you the person who said you don't want any of those banners outside of your store?
Okay, that's not appropriate for the question. Thank you.
Tammy, I'd be more than happy to talk to you further about this at another time if you want to talk to us.
Okay, Lenny.
Yeah, I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking of downtown. And I'm thinking of when I go over to New York and see Hometown Heroes banners. And the distance between light poles is a considerable distance that I've seen them over New York State. So we're not talking about a field of daisies there that has a Hometown Heroes banner or a banner at all of any sort, one on top of the other. We're talking about a gap between banners that are going to be on poles. For you to limit this to a number of 12 light poles, I think that's very, very small quantity of poles, especially if you decide to have this spread out amongst all the villages of the town of Hartford. You're talking about 2 here, 2 there, 2 in another village, and that's not a whole lot of banners to put up. I think the number of the banners to be displayed needs to be adjusted.
Okay, we'll put that as one of the items to discuss. So duration, cost, the criteria, the banner dimensions, and the number of light poles are all open items, I think, at this point.
And we'd love to see Scott Holmes's map.
Yeah, that would also be
Actually,
helpful.
you can get that online, that's where I got it from. If you go to Green Mountain Power. They have a map and they show every light pole, everything that they own.
That they own, but do they have the town-owned ones too?
Yes, they had, when I went.
I'll look.
Scott Holmes. I'm the one that was in charge of putting flags up down. I fought with the town. We fought 5 years to put American flags downtown. And that project, I got so tired of trying to get flags in the town. I went to the state because it's a state highway, Route 5, and you guys don't have control over Route 5. So all I had to do with them was just get it approved by the highway department. And then at the time, the town manager, she signed off on it. It was much easier dealing with the state than it is dealing with the town. As far as some of the comments I've been reading and hearing, we're not the war machine. we're only doing our job. You wanna fight the war machine and the people that are actively fight big corporate America and your high politicians. The foot soldier is only the grunt on the ground doing his job. And all we want to do is honor his job. As far as I hang the flags and take them down every year. I don't hire anybody. It doesn't take that much work. You could do the same with the banners. Each group could put up their own banners. As far as duration, if you have so many light poles, why can't everybody put up their own? But I noticed downtown when I was looking to put up American flags, half the light poles down there, you can't put anything on because you got speed limit, stop, do not park. You have so many other signs, we wouldn't be able to use all the light poles. It's another thing you've got to look into. But duration to me is, if you're gonna honor somebody, you don't just honor them for 5 minutes. You honor, the people that wanna honor their people, they wanna honor them for a lifetime. They don't just honor them when it's convenient for them. My son was killed in Iraq. He was going there to do his job. He was proud of what he was gonna do. And he knew he may not come home. And you're telling me that I cannot honor my son? Sorry.
Any other comments on this? I think we've identified the areas that we need to do some more discussion of. Just Heidi?
If I may, Mike, Heidi Due with River Junction, Vermont. So just recently I did a open record request, which Kim Souza also followed behind me and read the same open record request. Within that open record request, there is a list of all state and town flagpoles owned, and it was provided by Green Mountain Power. And if any of you would like it, I can more than easily send it to you, or I can go back into town and mark it and have Paula send it to you. But it is available and it is in that public record request.
It's also in tonight's packet.
Okay.
But the map would be so much better.
Well, I don't have a map.
We just have the list of the
But
addresses.
it does have every street, every post numbered right down to a T. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I'm in support of this because they're trying to tell you it's not only veterans. It could be a nurse. It could be a doctor. It could be, no?
Honorably
So-
discharged veterans or first responders.
But I mean, there's an open field of who could be acknowledged and honored. And I don't see why there's so much conflict with this board and just letting something like this go. One of our select board members works at the VA. Another one is totally against the town, and I'm not sure why they even ran.
Okay, anything else on this side?
So I really wished you guys could just let things be. I mean, nobody is saying no to murals downtown or photos downtown or flags flying on the municipal building.
Yeah,
Are
but
there
those
charges
those
for
are put
those
up as
going up?
after a policy. I mean, that,
But are
that's
they
just the idea is that we
Excuse me.
we have a policy.
Order.
Mike.
Can you, Heidi, please?
Are there charges for the flags to be put up day in and day out when they're on our municipal building? You're trying to accrue charges from banners, but are you charging for people to fly their flags? That's a very good concern.
Hey, so we've identified the duration, the cost, the criteria, dimensions of the banners. I think the number of light poles in the map would be helpful for this. Is there anything else that we want to identify before we move on to our next item?
Can I just from Lori's other notes, like,
Yeah.
do we potentially wanna incorporate something about the over across the street banner option? Like, or would that be a separate thing, John, you think?
It certainly seems like something different than Lightpole banners.
Okay, so then that way we could do that in another.
Like, for example, the beginning of a road race might hang on.
Yeah.
the side.
Right.
Yeah. So that, there's been things about that for two. And
We could amend the policy later for that.
good idea, yeah.
Because it does seem like it's somehow a piece.
And then also, I think we do want to incorporate definitions, and that might be a place where, like Lori suggested here, consider defining light poles as decorative light poles and that kind of thing. Like most policies do have a little section of definitions. And I don't know if I have the skill set to do that, but I could take a stab at it. And then we could edit from there, ask staff to edit from there, maybe.
I think then the next thing is probably a list, like we here are the open items and maybe even a second draft that we can all look at.
I do think there's others in Lori's notes that would be like, consider establishing a yearly schedule so that like basically there's a deadline for applications for each annual cycle so that we know in advance, or not, we're deciding not to do that, but and then yeah, then a couple other just super minor things that I think should be incorporated, specifying business days in terms of the drop off and pickup, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, so, but I think the big main ones that we've talked about, I mean, do you want to get a consensus just among the board at this point of?
I'd wait for till Mary's back.
Okay.
But I mean, I think they're gonna be policy decisions, we just have to decide. And it's a majority of the board, right, how long it's gonna be, things like that. But I do think since we've heard information that have brought up new questions, we do want, you know, think some more about these areas that we've identified.
Can I ask one more question potentially of the committee? Would you anticipate, so I know that this year you've requested 12 banners. Do you anticipate in future years wanting more than 12 banners?
It's a very good question. It's gonna depend on the applications that we receive, but I can imagine that we'd hope that it might grow. Depends on how many applications we get and the board's feelings on whether, you know, because these don't all have to be concentrated in downtown. This is where we chose to start. It seemed logical, that's our most traveled area, and also the hardware is already there to put them up. So if we did go to Wilder, West Hartford, or wherever, we'd have to do a lot more thinking about where we do that, and we'd have to have the hardware and so forth to do it. So it would involve more expense.
So there might be something to consider, like 12 per village or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, part of that, looking at the map, and figuring that out, so.
Mr.
Suzanne, and then, or Dennis, you have another, you have a follow-up?
Well, before we get done, I was hoping just to get a map up and figure out where we're going from here and possibly be on the next agenda or whatever that would be. One other thing that I think is noted in some of the stuff I saw was concerned about location. We were able to discuss that.
Like, what do you mean by location?
Where they would do.
Like downtown or in other areas? I mean, it's.
No, the proposal.
Yeah, sorry.
The proposal was for downtown, but we were hoping to put some on South Main because the brackets are already there.
Right.
It'd be nice, there's no brackets on the poles by Veterans Park, but I think if we went ahead with this, I think we'd have enough money to buy brackets and put those up there. And maybe down through Rich Street.
Okay.
And just before we get done, I appreciate a wrap up of where we're headed and next steps.
Yeah, I think the next steps are we've identified these areas that we want to discuss some more. So some of that is finding out more information, getting the light pole map, things like that. Some things that are out there like duration, that may just come down to like a future board meeting where we're like, how many people think it should be a month at a time? We get 2 chances. How many people think it should be 6 months, right? Like it may be we just have to on the policy decisions, just like kind of vote-a-rama, right? So I think what would happen next is, you know, we compile these questions, we circulate it to the board. I don't know if we have a second draft, maybe. But the idea would be to get it on an upcoming agenda. I don't know if that's for the, when's our next one, the 14th? Or if it would be for the 28th there, but it would be something like that. So I think what would happen is when we come to sort of final agreement on a banner policy, we'd adopt that. I think then the next step would be Hometown Heroes would fill out the application. And then we take it up at a following board meeting and just, you know, vote yay or nay on it. So, you know, I imagine, I think you mentioned it would, I mean, you're looking around July to actually order the banners, right? Or
if it's approved tonight, I think you get the applications out.
Right, yeah.
And then it's gonna take some time to evaluate those and prepare the company, you have to print them.
You're right.
So it'd be probably more than 6 weeks, it'd be more than 6 weeks because they only have applications out.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Just a suggestion process wise, I feel like an efficient way to do it would be, John, if you created a second draft incorporating, I know we've gotten written feedback from over email, incorporating all the, you know, non-controversial suggestions, as well as highlight a few areas where we know that there needs to be a little more discussion, or what you're describing as like a hands vote, and give some options, potentially suggested options of like what's been on the table to consider for those areas. Just so it's all clear in one document of like a revised version with incorporated edits, as well as those highlighted points that aren't final yet, that we can hopefully just zero in on and say, all right, this one, what's the draft, what's the policy that we're voting on?
Yeah. So I think that would be good. I mean, if we could get it before us at our next meeting, the 14th, I mean, as well, right? And we don't see any delay if we can actually hammer it in. So that would be my suggestion. I would say anyone who has comments on the proposed draft to email the select board with a copy of the town manager, and get, you know, sort of collate all those questions and concerns that we have to figure out.
So we'll put the banner project and the banner policy on the next agenda.
So we have an agenda meeting next Wednesday. We'll decide it then. I mean, ideally, if we can get another draft and everything, you know, we could agree to put it on. Our next meeting's the 14th, is I guess what I'm saying. And so, you know, I would like to make sure we move quickly.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify with you, Dennis. I mean, I think it's clear that we need another meeting about the policy. I'm curious what you feel like still needs to be on the agenda in terms of the Hometown Heroes banner discussion.
Well, I was just, when I first met with you folks here a month ago or whenever it was, I was kind of thought I was here as a courtesy. I didn't realize we were going to run into so many questions and issues and so forth. And so I'm still here kind of as a courtesy. I'd just like the committee would like to have your blessing for this before we move forward. I don't want to have any surprises or any problems thereafter. So
yeah, I mean, I think
trying to be upfront.
Yeah, no, I think you're welcome to come, but what I want to communicate to you is I think as a board, there's, you know, general support for the Hometown Heroes banners. We need to establish a policy. And from the broader community as well. That's what I've heard. So I think you're welcome. I just worry that I don't think we need more discussion to get the support that you're looking for in terms of once we have a policy in place.
Yeah, like I think the next meeting would be an agenda item about the policy, and we would vote what it looks like. And then Hometown Heroes or anyone else would submit an application that would come before us, and then we vote to approve it. So I think that's what it'd be. So on the 14th, right, we have a banner policy. We've all sort of figured out what it looks like, right? The next step would be to fill out an application that would come before us at the next meeting, like the 28th, and then we would. I think procedurally that's what it would look like if we get the banner policy finalized at our next meeting on the 14th. So Suzanne's up, and then we can hear from more people, and then we're gonna move on to our, well, we might table our next item, but in any event, we'll move on after that, Suzanne.
Yeah, Susanna Betty again. I just would like this Hometown Heroes project, banner project, to get a little more respect. And I would propose not equating it with other supposed people clamoring to get banners up. Honestly, the 250th banners were up for like, I don't know, 3 years until all the brackets broke. And it was 2011, 2012, 2014, 2015. And they came down and it was kind of sad. I mean, there were no banners. There haven't been any banners for the last, what, almost 10 years. And suddenly, when the Hometown Heroes Project wants to honor our veterans in a veterans town, suddenly we need a policy and there's all these other people clamoring to put up other banners. This to me is just a pile of baloney. And so I would like to see the Hometown Heroes Project get the respect that they deserve in a veterans town, honest to God. Have it up like for a year or two, grandfather it in, honor our heroes. We'll have debates over which polls, this and that, and then have a second tier of the 30-day or 60-day. All these people clamoring, I want to see those banners. They've been absent for 10 years, and all of a sudden we talk policy and everyone wants to put a banner up. This is just disingenuous. And I would really like to just have us come to our senses and figure out a way to have these, the banners are going to come up and down because they're going to be new people up. You know, there's going to be exchanges. It's not going to be like they're going to be up forever. There's going to be banners up, banners down, but let this project be a Hartford project that kind of goes on and on and on. I mean, honestly, it's just honoring the veterans. And now we're talking about a policy. It just doesn't sound very good. It kind of smells. Thank you.
Suzanne, any other comment on this before we move on in the agenda? Yes.
Hi, Mary Hutchins, Secretary for Hometown Heroes. Is it safe? Can I put the applications out and start getting responses so that when the policy is set in place, I've got banners I can order? Is this going to happen?
Well, I mean, our plan is to get the policy on the next agenda we can and vote on it, and then get an application from Hometown Heroes. I mean, that's the process. I just don't want to take in applications from people and then have to go back to families and say, you know what, we can't do it. I mean, I think that's a sort of a decision your committee has to make. I mean, I think we've given pretty clear indications of how this is going to turn out, right?
I don't know, have we?
I mean, we've had more than a majority of people on the board say they would support Hometown Heroes.
And I think the problem is that there's no trust now because of things that have been said, and I want to acknowledge that.
Yes.
And this is really out of order, but we said anyway. We own 3 properties in this town. I'll put them up in every goddamn one of them if the town didn't do it for you, okay? Man.
I will go ahead with the applications. If you need my help with getting stuff, please let me know. I want to get this done.
Thank you. Any other comment on this before we move along? Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Just one. When do you want the map of the light pole? It's on my computer.
Have you got an email address? I'll be happy to get in touch with you.
I have this. I have your.
Yeah, if you guys,
greatly appreciated.
whenever you want, just send it to John.
Yes, please.
Okay, I think that's that. So our next item.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item, does anyone really have an objection if we table the rules of procedure to the next one?
No.
I do not, especially because I think Mary had some really solid input,
Yeah.
and it would be great to have Mary here.
Yep, that sounds good. So we'll skip that. Next thing is this Fairview Terrace Declaration of Official Intent, which apparently I actually have to read this out loud. So I will read it and then we can do a motion. John, you want to give us just a little background on why we have to do this?
Yes, at our last meeting, the select board heard an engineer's update about the Fairview Terrace project and estimated construction costs for the road reconstruction and the retaining wall. You all remember that. Following that meeting, I talked to bond counsel Elijah Emerson. He said, did you know that if you were to adopt a declaration of official intent, we could recoup our already incurred costs is back as far as 60 days back from from a declaration that we could issue and roll all those expenses plus the future expenses into an overall package for a bond vote. And I said, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. I'll run it before the select board so that we can roll as many of these current and recent expenses into the bond amount. And so all we would have to do to make ourselves eligible under the rules that apply is to adopt a declaration of official intent of the town of Hartford to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness. And this is a form that was generated by bond counsel.
Okay, and so any questions for John about that, Jim?
So potentially, like, so say we spend $200,000 on engineering or other stuff that then would be eligible to go. Does that get rolled into the bond?
Yes.
If the voters approve it, and if so, then those funds that were allocated for it will then be just available for other use in future fiscal year.
Yeah. And that's why we have a larger number than we heard in terms of the engineer's estimates. We goosed it up to $4.1 million on the possibility that we could recapture some of these current expenses.
Okay, so I will read this aloud and then we'll have a motion to adopt essentially this declaration.
Yes,
Okay. Declaration of official intent.
Speed reading.
I'm gonna do my best here. Declaration of official intent of town of Hartford to reimburse certain expenditures for proceeds of indebtedness. Whereas the town of Hartford, Vermont, the issuer intends to construct public highway improvements on or around Fairview Terrace, the project, to be considered by the issuer at a special meeting thereof to be called and held on November 5th, 2024. And whereas the issuer expects to pay certain capital expenditures, the reimbursement expenditures, in connection with the project prior to the issuance of indebtedness for the purpose of financing costs associated with the project on a long-term basis. Whereas the insurer reasonably expects that for the part of the project consisting of design, engineering, contract administration, permitting, financing, acquisition, and construction costs, debt obligations at an amount not to exceed $4,100,000 will be issued, and that certain of the proceeds of such debt obligations will be used to reimburse the expenditures. And whereas the issuer declares its reasonable official intent to reimburse prior expenditures for the above described part of the project, the proceeds of a subsequent borrowing, now therefore the issuer declares, Section 1, the issuer finds and determines if the foregoing recitals are true and correct, and that all the capital expenditures covered by this resolution were or will be made not earlier than 60 days prior to the date of this resolution. Section 2, the declaration is made solely for the purposes of establishing compliance with the requirements of Section 1.150/2 of the Treasury Regulations. This declaration does not bind the issuer to make any expenditure or incur any indebtedness or proceed with the project. Section 3, the issuer hereby declares its official intent to use proceeds of indebtedness to reimburse itself for reimbursement expenditures within 18 months of either the date of the first expenditure of funds by issuer for such project or the date that such project is placed in service, whichever is later, but no event more than 3 years after the date of the original expenditure of issuer funds for such project, and to allocate an amount not to exceed $4,100,000 of the proceeds thereof to reimburse itself for the expenditures in connection with the project. Section 4, the issuer's debt obligations for the aforementioned purpose will not be private activity bonds within the meaning of Section 141 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986. Section 5, all prior actions of the officials and agents of issuer that are in conformity with the purpose and intent of this resolution and in furtherance of the project shall, and the same hereby are in all respects ratified, approved, and confirmed. Section 6, all other resolutions of the legislative body of the issuer or parts of resolutions inconsistent with this resolution are hereby repealed to the extent of such inconsistency. Section 7, it is hereby found that all discussions and deliberations of the legislative body of the issuer leading to the adoption of this resolution occurred at one or more meetings of the legislative body conducted pursuant to public notice and open to public attendance. Section 8, the declaration shall take effect from and after its adoption. The undersigned clerk of the issuer hereby certifies that the foregoing is a full, true, and correct copy of the declaration of the select board of the issuer duly made at a meeting thereof held on the date specified below, and that said declaration has not been amended, modified, or revoked. April 30th, 2024. I think we just need a motion to adopt the declaration.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Sue. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Great, so we've got commission reports. Kim, anything?
Sorry. Planning Commission met April 15th. They elected officers. The Environmental Sustainability Coordinator will be scheduling a workshop with the Planning Commission and ZBA and Energy Commission to review changes to the newly revised State Energy Code, which will be effective in July. Two applications two from BlackRock Investments were continued to May 20th, and then after extensive discussion, another application for a site development plan for a car wash on Sykes Mountain Avenue was also continued to May 20th. And then the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion met on April 17th. Committee will be coming before the board at a future meeting to discuss amending the membership constitution portion of the group's charge. And the committee chair will request a staff liaison position to be considered by the town manager. Updates were provided for the Community Safety Review, Vermont, VLCT, Welcoming Engaging Communities Cohort, the Ideal Vermont group, and the NAACP Windsor County Chapter Development.
Thank you, Kim. Brandon, any commission reports?
I do not.
Do you have any commission reports?
I don't, and I know Lana wants us to do written ones. I'm still unclear on how I get that information or what, so I just, since we're tabling the principles, yeah, if we could have this as part of that discussion next time of like, what's expected of us, what's the process, what should we do? Because at one point it was like, maybe it's we're duplicating something
In
and we
fact,
don't
I
need to
do
do it.
believe it's duplicative of what
Yeah.
happens at the committees themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, am I supposed to read notes and write something? Am I supposed to email them? I don't know.
It's a
So,
good question. It
yeah.
seems
yeah,
maybe this isn't 100% necessary.
Yeah, we can discuss it with rules of
Okay.
procedures, or I mean, basically, my practice is, I go to the meetings, if I can't get to the meetings, I review the minutes, and then I just summarize what happened and email that to Lana, and that's what I read during this part of the portion, and then, so she just copies that into the minutes.
Yeah, it ends up in the minutes.
I'm happy to do that if that's an assignment that I get. I just want to be clear, like, am I really responsible for that? You know, like, or what is the, yeah.
We could just email them and have them in the minutes and not have to say them out loud.
Yeah, that might be nice.
Is that the duplication you think?
Well, the minutes are longer than they need to be. If that's not a problem, then I don't think it's a problem.
I mean,
Right, well-
either way, we could discuss,
Okay.
but that is part, I mean, I think that's the liaison responsibility
Yeah,
is to
to be
communicate
aware,
to the board
right.
what the committees are working on.
Yeah,
But
okay,
you don't
let's
have
talk
any
about it.
tonight, Okay, Sue, anything?
Nothing.
All right, great.
Yes.
Lanny?
No.
Okay, I don't have anything either. Consent agenda, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the select board approve payroll ending April 27, 2024, AP manifests of April 26th and May 2nd, 2024, meeting minutes of April 16, 2024, and that's it.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ida. Any discussion?
Discussion. Yeah, 4/16/2024 for the vote for on the local liquor commission for Wicked Awesome Barbecue. I did not vote either in the affirmative or in the negative, nor did I abstain.
Okay, so we'll make a
Let me ask,
correction.
I remember saying,
I did not vote in the affirmative or the negative or abstain.
okay,
My voice is not heard being voted.
I never you voted, but I thought I followed up at least.
I
with one of
never
them
voted.
saying-
Is not voting an abstention?
You can call it whatever you want, but I didn't vote.
I think it
Why
works.
can't I forget?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need anything changed? We're gonna change the minutes.
I can talk to
Go ahead.
Lana about it
Okay,
and hopefully try to reflect that in the minutes somehow.
all right. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Maybe did you vote?
But yes, I.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
You got it.
All right, so moved by Sue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Brandon. All those in favor say aye.
Signatures.
Yep.
Yes.
Signatures.
I have
Thank
my
you very
pen
much.
out in my hands.